What's up, buddy? All right, let some viewers get in here. No, no countdown today. We're just chilling. I don't have a good countdown meter that doesn't have wouldn't be misleading for the podcast. I should put just chatting. I don't even know what the stream info is. We're just chilling. I got my cat here. He's not gonna. If he stands up, he might make it on screen. He's kind of small. But right now, he chose the perfect time to use my mouse as a pillow. So there's that. There's that. He's probably gonna end this stream early somehow. Ooh. Hey, buddy. Chose such a specific time to be all lovey-dovey. To be Mr. Keyboard Cat. Oh. Mr. Keyboard Cat. What if nobody shows up and I just end up streaming like an hour of me petting you? Absolutely no context. You're not even on. Just fake cat, imaginary cat, off screen. What if they can hear you purr? Probably not. Probably not. It's going to be mega awkward for someone trying to watch this later on YouTube because there's no way I'm editing this out. Absolutely no chance. I'm not just hitting export and titling this and sending it straight to YouTube. Oh, my cat changed the DPI on my mouse, which is why I can't see the chat. Hey, what's up, Aspira? How's it going? Let me see if I can fix the sensitivity on my mouse now. Hey, I'm going to assume that's Vicedom. I think that's how that's pronounced. How's it going? First time chatter. Thanks for joining me. Gonna let a couple more people roll in before I get started with all the storytelling, all the travel vlogging. Eventually, Mr. Monk here will get tired of me petting him anyway. And that way I can focus better. I gotta prove I have a cat real quick, bud. Oh, there he goes. He wants to relax. He's been treating me weird since I got back from Orlando because I'm pretty sure I smell like a couple cats I was staying with. You know, I smell like a totally new place. He's been treating me a little weird. Yeah, you were in Orlando. You played in the regional. What were you playing at the Orlando events if you were in them? You guys, if you hear a weird slapping sound, that's his tail. I was gonna pick him up and show him on camera, but you know, he's not having it. I would move my camera, but it's actually still broken. I have my camera like taped to the top of my monitor. I've actually been pretty lucky that I've casted the last provisionals I was going to play in because it was going to be a pain in the ass to fix that. Not going to lie. I was like, I can just keep it there. Instead of trying to... You know, when it happened during the event, during the, I think it was actually the regional. Come on, bud. Come on, I got to be professional pretty soon here. When I played Tokoyami, so I think it was the regional, round one, right before everything starts, my camera breaks. And it breaks, you know, just so it's still pointed in pretty much the same way, but you can tell it's going to sag or it could fall at any time. So I had to go and get it taped up right before, mulligans were resolved for round one. My opponent was really cool, called a judge and was like, hey, his first judge call of the day, we're just got to make sure that we get this resolved, make sure everything stays on camera. Sure did. I played fourth kind in the regional and provisional 3 with All Might 1. Ooh, All Might 1. Oh, you're sitting next to me in round 2. Who did I play in round 2? If you can help me remember what character I played against, that would be huge. I'm trying to put my tournament report together. I know I can find people's names, but I can't remember what they were playing. Fourth kind, how'd you do with fourth kind? Where'd you place? Fourth kind was definitely something I was ready for. Fourth kind was something I was prepared to play against. I didn't see one. I didn't play against one all day. I was expecting to play against a bunch of order decks that side into him. Kirogiri, I was expecting to see some Kirogiris trying to fight fourth kinds, even though I don't think that matchup is that bad for fourth kind. I think that's a fundamental thing. I thought it, played it, did the sideboard into Kirigiri, and it was so much easier just to block the 1.3 million or the fourth attack or whatever. And I was really upset that I wasn't responding to get rid of Recipro Extends. I think that might be the real way to play that matchup, is don't let them play any of the draw card or maybe the Searing Glacials, and put just put a starter 1.3 million in their hand. Although I guess that gets dangerous if they have other backup. You're giving them the fourth card to play. So I'm probably wrong. Okay, 5 and 3, not bad, not bad. 5 and 3, that's that's a Tamron Cardwell score, so it's all that's good. He's a good player. Yeah, and that's extra prizing for sure, right? You got a couple extra promos. I don't think I don't think it was super surprising that there was no fourth kinds in top cuts. I know it's kind of... I'm not trying to be mean. I don't know if that comes off the wrong way. I'm not that surprising, only because I think it's a deck that a lot of people are legit afraid of, right? I think it's a deck that is, because its best abilities, I guess, its defining traits are its offensive capabilities. And because you almost certainly have to run into it, right? Because the interaction point that is most pivotal is a foundation based, a low foundation count kind of a thing. You're almost forced to always deal with that effect in some capacity. Even if you build over it, you're prepared for it. You've made that decision, and you have to, play a little differently. And so, unless you're just completely committed to turn to aggression, which definitely runs its risks, I think it's gonna stay meta relevant. I think a fourth kind could come out and just surprise people as soon as they forget about it. I think you'll have to keep your low blocks on your mind, when building your deck. Oh, he stopped purring. All right, we got a couple more people trickling in. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get started here anyway, pretty soon. I'm gonna try and go kind of in chronological order, I think, but I do want to separate things, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I kind of like to start with the negative, right? I like to save the best for last. I want to get some stuff off my chest, just get it out of the way. I'd rather get it out of the way and over with, and then talk about all the really good stuff afterwards. So there's definitely going to be some jumping around. I'll get to the deck list, eventually, right? Once I start talking about the actual tournament and stuff. But I do want to prepare people that, there's as Phil Birch put it, controversy and stuff like that. And I just want to give my take on it. Just want to give like the way I see things, I guess. It just seems like the time to do it, and I don't think anything's like that bad. I don't think anything's most of the stuff is blown over, and people have gotten sort of whatever they were gonna get. Monk, come on, with the table slapping, bud. This is he chose the best time. Yeah, he does make you play the game different, and that's really what I'm talking about. Like you're gonna have to continue to respect his offense. You're not gonna be able to just forget about his offense here. So, but yeah, what I was saying just a second ago. I know I'm jumping around a lot, but it is a little tougher than I thought to organize my thoughts on things. But come on. You're up here on the keyboard so I can pet you, and now you're upset that I'm petting you. What a classic cat. I told you, when you knocked on the door, I was going to be busy. He's a very upset cat. All right, monks. Let's just set you down. There you go, bud. There you go. I can't have you slapping the keyboard. There you go, buddy. All right, I'm back. Messed up my white balance and everything. All right. This is the best stream ever. I hope people watch this on YouTube later. Like, they just put it on in their car and are so confused. But yeah, so I do want to kind of start with, I guess, a little bit of the negative stuff. Just to get it out of the way, just so that way I can end on a positive note. I do think the positives outweigh the negatives. A big part of that does come from the last day I was in Orlando. One of my father's old friends, who knew me from when I was a kid, put me up for a night, drove me to the airport, came through for us as a friend. And that was actually really the highlight of my trip, and I did not expect that. So I'll get to that, but that's like the sappy, emotional stuff. I actually haven't watched Andrew's video yet, too, so I wonder if I'll be like treading over some of the same territory. I know if you watched Phil Birch's live stream, in the Unfun Stuff Boys the other day, they covered a lot of the ground, so like, there's no real negative feelings still lingering. There's nothing really still going on. A lot of it was just kind of stuff in the moment, and a lot of it, of course, is always caused by misunderstanding, lack of information, however you really want to put it. So, that's just a typical conflict in general, I think. But as far as stuff that's not even MHA related, traveling is not something I do super often. As I said in the post, this is the first time I went back to Florida in 20 years. Since I've moved to Las Vegas, I've not been back to Florida. And so when, my parents have followed along with the game kind of growing, it's one of the things I talk about. It's one of the things that they know I've been interested in. And of course, when they're interested when I travel, it's been 4 UFS universes, now the My Hero card game. And my sister really helped me put this together. So that was like a huge thing for me. It was kind of a landmark sort of thing coming back to really like my backyard, like really close. I was kind of shocked when I heard it was going to be Florida. I don't know when I remember, probably on stream, announcing it that I was going to actually be in Orlando. I was assuming it was going to be up closer to, Altamont Springs at closest, but I was really expecting one to be closer to Miami or something like that. So, that was something I was kind of nervous about, that something nostalgic was going to trigger in me, or that I was going to take things a little too seriously, because I was definitely motivated to do well in the tournament. Not just because, there's some weird sense of Florida pride, or or whatever, but also because of, the expenses to travel. So trying to make sure that I get the most bang for my buck, that I didn't feel disappointed with my performance, probably put a little more stress, but I tried to fuel that into preparing for the event. My YouTube channel has definitely suffered for it. I feel really bad for Chris Smith because I'm sure he's excited to see the videos and the edits and stuff for his win, and I am working on that. But I got really wrapped up because testing out the air symbol for this event was something I got really into. It's been a while since I've really been super interested in deck building, and this is the first time I think I've made a Top Cuts with a deck that I made, which, when it comes to like a set one format, and when it comes a lot to like the air symbol, there's still some good diversity, but a lot of times it didn't really feel like you were making a new idea for a deck or anything like that. And the Unwavering / Sports Festival Stadium in combination just felt so good that I knew I had to focus on something like that. I actually tested Air Froppy a lot leading up to it. I really just wanted to play the air symbol. I just wanted to get around to it. I didn't want to play Kamui Woods, though, even though that deck is fairly legitimate. It is very frustrating to deal with, 7-8 damage, double jab pummels. But the biggest thing is that Specialized Sound Waves is one of the best air cards. It's one of the best cards in the game. And so I had it in my Air Sue deck, and actually getting the momentum for it and the lack of specific defensive pieces or like long game defensive pieces on the air symbol just didn't feel super good. Especially when they don't have like the ways to unflip things that the life symbol gets. Like I do think the water symbol is pound for pound still the best version of her, performed the best. I was very lucky. I got to travel around with Travis and talk to him, and he's got a lot of strong convictions about the way that he builds his deck, and you can tell that he really puts in the reps, right? Like we talk about that a lot. We like to comment on that, when we do the broadcast a lot about, players who really spend time fine-tuning their decks and finding like the personal touch to it. It is a huge element to this game, and that's something I really wanted to focus on, and I think I did achieve, at least to some level, with the Denki deck. Getting eliminated immediately in Top Cuts is still kind of frustrating to me. I don't think I haven't made like a deep dive through a top 16 yet. I got very lucky to get past Clinton Thompson in the first one, and it feels like my top 16 matches are always my worst matchups, so I really need to find a broader mix. I need to find a better sideboard. I need to find a better grip on the meta or whatever, but that's all tournament stuff. As far as it comes to actually traveling, my flight experience was pretty rough. I had some trouble booking with Frontier. They were not very helpful in dealing with those issues. Definitely kind of felt scammed in a way with setting it up. The actual employees, of course, like on the plane, super pleasant. Nothing really bad there. I'm not a great flyer. I've only done it now 4 times. Two arrivals, 2 departures, kind of a thing. So, Berlander says, totally missed this weekend. You represented the boy? Meteor Shower loop. Yes, Meteor Shower. I mean, Denki kind of loops it himself, right? I was running for Meteor Shower. It's not my favorite attack, but it's pretty hard to turn down in Denki 1. So that was definitely something. I tried a lot of different combinations of attack lineups. I don't think Meteor Shower was in a lot of the early ones, but it pretty much took one testing session of having both Double Jab Pummel and Meteor Shower in the deck to land on maxing out meteor showers. So, yeah, but as far as the flight goes, I've only flown a couple times. I'm a bigger dude. I'm going for like the cheapest experience possible, right? I'm trying to cut my costs as much as I can, and so I don't deal well with like the weightlessness. Anytime the plane dips and turns, it was pretty rough, and I tried to be tired, right? Like everyone talks about, doing the doing the red eye flight because you save the money, and then you also sleep through the flight and stuff like that. But I'm kind of a night owl, so I was very tired going into it, but I still wasn't able to like get any sleep on the plane. I still don't really fit in the seats. I was very lucky to have an aisle seat on the way there, but I was sitting next to a lady who seemed like she was going through a grieving process. I got the impression she had lost someone recently, so it was kind of like a whole thing on the way there. I was also super nervous. I was going to be late to the event. If anything happened, if anything went wrong on the plane, if there's any kind of delay, my flight was scheduled to land at 8 a.m., so I was probably worked up about that as well. But luckily everything went pretty smooth from there. I felt really crappy throughout the whole flight airport process, leaving at 11:59 at night, kind of a thing. Getting picked up by Andrew Holder, super homie, grabbed me. I know he picked up Travis too. Excellent car ride. Just, I have nothing but nice things to say about both of those fellas. Fun story, before I forget, I know I'm going to probably mention this later when I talk about the actual tournament and the results, but the first time I really met Travis, or like I'm pretty sure it's the first time I ever played against him. I don't remember meeting him before. Total strangers. Sit down and we're playing at the Vegas Regional, and he's playing Bakugo 2. I'm playing LIFO Chaco 1, and I can't remember if it was game 1 or game 2 or game. I think it was the final game, but I just remember there was a game where I drew literally every Faith Shield, blocked every single attack except like the very last one that he played with a Faith Shield, and he still managed to put me in a situation where I almost punted because he has like a 12 damage howitzer impact cyclone that'll put me at 14, as like his third attack played. His card pool is like face down, just normal howitzer impact with the momentum he's got from like one poke turn or something like that. And I'm like, man, this is a lot of damage. I should probably just block this. If it's not an impact cyclone, like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I can block one or the other, right? And I just remember like looking at the board, seeing like one extra momentum tutor, remembering it gives one itself, and just being like, nah, I would have died. I'll die to the next one. So I take it, of course. And then what does he do? He plays the next one. So it took I did block, with high and win the match, but it took a frustrating amount of face shields. And I remember after the match, there was just like nothing to really talk about. Normally after a game, you're like, oh, haha, you almost got me. But it was just like, what can you do? Sometimes you just rip all the answers, right? I don't know, man. I couldn't fit double jab pommel on my set 1 list of him I topped with. Honestly, not sure how you did. Congrats on topping, bro. I think the biggest reason I was able to fit it is I prioritized low difficulty. And like I'd have to see your list, but like set 1 I was definitely playing zero gravity lift. Set 2 I am not playing zero gravity lift. It's very much like a flow-based list. I think it has been posted online by now, or like I know Andrew has a link to all of them somewhere on Facebook. And I'll bring that up. If we get more people who really want to see the deck list, I can jump into that first before I start complaining about my weekend. But I do kind of want to address stuff a little bit earlier, because I do want to get it out of the way, because I do think some things need to be said overall. But so So the reason I tell you the Frontier story is not just to bitch for catharsis, but it does maybe explain, kind of how people could feel upset, or again, it feels weird to call it controversy or whatever, especially since now it seems to be all settled. Everything seems to have worked out how it should have, right? Like that's in the past, for as far as anything that was going to ruin someone's weekend or be like unfair to someone, at least as far as I know all the stories. But I'm getting there and going straight to the venue. We're stopping at the Wawa and we're picking up waters and snacks or whatever, and we're heading straight to the venue pretty much to get signed up and everything. And my round one opponent is a no-show, and I'm like, that's cool. Yeah, no zero grabs. It is nutty. It's the there's a lot of stuff I learned while playtesting, and I don't think I don't play the deck anything the same I did with my set 1 Kaminari testing, or when I first started testing set 2 for this event. The deck really did go through like an overhaul. And the way that I make decisions when playing it is super, super different than the way I made decisions playing it 2 weeks ago. So, really kind of a weird thing. So, but my round 1 opponent is a no-show, so I start the day off well, but I know that I have bad tiebreakers now, or at least I think I do. My past experiences with getting buys and ending X2 and things like that have not been good. There's been a lot of events that I've had a round 1 buy-in, and those are usually the ones that I miss top cuts with like a same record. So, MF Waffles, are you doing WWW? Oh, the Wednesday Webcam Weekly? I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not. I was at the beginning of the stream, I talked about how my webcam is actually still broken, and rigging it up for webcam play would be, tenuous at best. I would be really paranoid about it jiggling out of the way and causing a technical issue, game loss, and that would affect my play and how much fun I would have. I should talk to Aspire about casting some. I don't know. I haven't checked in on the webcam weeklies in a while. My Wednesdays aren't the most free. I spend a lot of time doing running errands, for the people I live with. They give me a good deal on rent, so there's a lot of stuff that I'm responsible for. There's a lot of help that they need in their life, so my time is very morphic, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so with round 1, my opponent didn't show up. It's kind of a funny story too, because it's like, I think 4.5 minutes, it's like a minute before either a game loss or a match loss, and there's a judge just kind of coming by, and I hail down the judge and I'm like, hey, just while you're here, I want to let you know my opponent's not here. I want to document it, right? I have actually had issues in the past where my opponent showed up 11 minutes late and the judge was like, oh, well, we're not trying to be dicks, so Sam can go first. And I was like, hold on, can I at least get a game loss? Like, they were going to drop him, and I was like, don't drop him, he's here. And they're like, cool, so just play. Very weird. Anyway, I'll get sidetracked on shit I don't care about. But so I call the judge over, and he's like, he checks the pairing or he asks for the name. He's like, that's weird. I think I checked him in. I'll go find him. And in my head, I'm like, great. I just gave up my free win, Again, I'm not a huge fan of getting the buy early. I want to get my reps in, get the blood flowing, get the decisions going. And statistically, it is most likely to be your easiest match of the day. So that is the one to kind of get your mentality down, right? Get your shuffling going. I'm terrible at shuffling. I suck at shuffling, so that's actually something I get stressed out about at events too, especially once you start dropping all the cards, it looks like you're wasting a bunch of time. So my opponent doesn't show up for round 1, so we get the easy win there. And I talked to some people. I'm not going to use names, and I don't, I want to be very clear about this. I don't want to really give too much context about the conversation, but I did talk to some people about judging while at the event in terms of wanting to become a judge, wanting to do some judging of my own. I wanted to kind of figure out the process, make sure it wouldn't interfere with playing or just anything else I wanted to do. And really it's about me wanting to be as involved as possible. And after, I wasn't going to talk about this, but after hearing Phil talk specifically about a judge saying something along the lines of it's not really his job to interfere, it's not really his job to stop things, if the player doesn't catch it, I guess was the gist. I really should have watched the stream back again, but I had like a similar sort of feeling, but I want to be very clear that I don't think this person was wrong. I think that we just have a difference of opinion. I really want to be clear about this because people can see things very black and white, and people can also believe that there's like a right and wrong. And when it comes to judging, there is no easy answer because it's almost never about knowing the rules, right? It's not really about knowing how cards work. It's not really about knowing the rules. That is certainly a requirement for judging, but it is not necessarily what you're going to be doing most of the time. Most of the time, it's player arbitration. And so they had just given me, their take on why they agreed with some decisions. And again, I respect their opinion, but I just remember thinking that that's not how I would handle it. That's not how I see things. And so what I guess I'd really like to see, because, you have to be constructive in some way. Oh, MF Waffles, thank you for the follow. I really appreciate that. So I think to be actually constructive and not just be a complainer, I'd like to know their thought process more. I was kind of surprised to find out, the decisions that they had agreed with. They did a good job of explaining their reasoning and why they feel that way. It just struck a wrong chord with me. So I know I'm being super vague, and I know people are going to be curious about, the specifics of it, but I don't want to really spill that because, again, I think that they're entitled to their opinion. I think that they're entitled to not believe that I was going to go run my mouth about this shit on the internet. So it's not fair to them to really dive into that. I just want you guys to know that, between everything that happened on the weekend, my mentality experiencing it is kind of now knowing a little bit better. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing that I know now, right? It's a good thing that I know, but I had a unique opportunity to go and talk to some of these people that not everyone gets. I had a unique avenue of interaction with them. So when it comes down to it, just the specific way, I guess I don't know how much is too much context here, but when it comes specifically to getting the cards right versus keeping the board state the same, irreparable board states, and this is something I've seen people talk about a lot in other chats and specifically like in Discords for rules and things like that. It is very strange to me how willing people are to let mistakes go as long as it doesn't require something to change currently on the board or that reversing something is too much. And I want to be really clear that when it comes like the judge call, like the judge coming to your table, I've heard a lot of people talk about like the stream games and why it's an issue that people who are watching are contacting a judge when it's the player's responsibilities and things like that. I think the most frustrating thing is when there's a judge already there. I think that's really like the thing that rubs me the wrong way is when it comes off as dismissive, that people can make mistakes and nobody's perfect, and I get that. But when the judge is like there, and Phil kind of talked about this, when the judge is there to specifically watch your game to make sure that things go well, there kind of should be no point at which, what's a good example? Like a generic example would be like the accepted board state, right? Like two players make a mistake, they played it authentically, right? Like no, we don't think anyone's cheating on purpose or trying to get away with anything or what have you. But something happens and both players accepted it. I think that that should not really be acceptable if the judge was there. If a judge is witnessing that. And it makes me really wonder, like, in situations where stuff like that happens, I hear the complaint is stuff like, oh, well, if nobody was watching it, if it was, not like a feature match or whatever, and then it wouldn't have bothered anybody. And, that just seems kind of depressing to me in a way that we don't want to strive for. And I know it's human. I know it's not going to be perfect. But for the rules and the integrity of the event is probably the one thing where I feel like striving for that or pushing for that or always keeping that in mind might be the one area where it's best to do that. On top of that, it just seems very weird to me that, and again, this is personal, this is opinion, that having cards played correctly isn't the most important thing. Now, when it comes to handling that, I think that, again, that's where the arbitration comes in. That's where I'm the worst at, right? Like that's where, and I talked to the people I was talking to about it, where it's like the one thing I'd be afraid of is that I'd suck at the arbitration because he said, she said stuff just doesn't gel with me. It's not something I'm good with. And that seems to be like the absolute worst of all judge calls, like all judging issues, no one sitting there. That's like the one thing that's kind of interesting with webcam, because it's one of the few times where actually just recording everything, doesn't seem implausible. So yeah, that just I guess what I'm trying to say is there's the conversation where it's like, I'm glad I had it. But the few things that rubbed me the wrong way just seemed like, they just seemed like a difference of opinion. They seemed like a philosophical difference. And again, I don't think anyone was wrong for how they felt, obviously, but it did make me question that, how would I have felt if this was communicated better? And again, it just seems like a weird philosophy to have for judging where it's in the rules. It's in the rules to interrupt a game or to go get a judge if you see something happening wrong. So to then have it be normal that the judge, because it's like, if you see something happening, you're gonna stop and say, hey guys, I'm gonna call a judge, this is wrong. I don't think many people are gonna do that, just because like this might just be the human issue. And again, there's no real guidance for this, but it's normal to just go get the judge and tell them, not to go, hey guys, just stop. Once or twice I have seen people just walking by go, hey, you can't do that, and I don't know if that counts, but you should also be getting a judge. Hopefully the players call the judge after that, but it's just such a weird thing. But the rules specifically encourage you to go get the judge, but the judge is almost always going to be too late to stop a board state, and usually if you're a passerby who notices something, it's almost specifically because of an irreparable board state. So if the system is set up, tell me if I'm going off on a tangent, guys. I'm dropping the few viewers I got. But if the system is set up so that you are supposed to go and get the judge if you see something, but then you're almost always going to get to both players accepted it conclusion, then what was the point of ever getting the judge in the first place? So it's a philosophical kind of an issue for me, not necessarily like an actual enforcement thing. I didn't have any, so that was like my round one, and I didn't think too much of it. Hey Barry, what's up, man? Hey, congrats on topping, and congrats specifically on topping with Air Sports Festival Stadium. That is the good shit right now in the format. Congrats on the Switch. I think you got top 4, right? You still got the Switch. I'm just telling a couple people here about my round one and how I had a good talk, about judging with someone at the event, but the philosophical differences, the difference in opinion just didn't quite add up to me. The logic behind it is just kind of lost on me. And to sum it up, if you weren't here, Barry, I know this would be particularly interesting to you because, you've been involved with the community for so long, where the rules are set up, right, to go and get a judge if you see something wrong as a bystander. And the philosophy of the person I spoke to was that, just like, for example, like if there's like an accepted board state, right, it's too late. Like you don't necessarily want to go and mess up a game. Both players played it with integrity, right? Like that's how they thought it's played. And it's too late to repair it. But so the rules are set up to go get the judge. The judge will pretty much never be there in time to not repair the board state. There is a lot of irreparable board states technically in this game. Like, yes, you can put a checked card back in the deck and shuffle it. But then you get into questions of responses on play and giving away information. Like if you play an attack, right? If something goes wrong, the board state's irreparable. You play an attack and I erase it, and then we just shuffle the cards back, put them back in the hand, or like remove it. Like I still might be upset that I erased, and that I need to erase during this attack. It's very contextual. So there's a lot of stuff that I understand you don't want to get into. You don't want to get murky with trying to repair the board state, and you don't just want to hand out game losses like candy, especially to both players when they were both okay with just playing it out. Like both players think it works a certain way. They certainly don't want to have a third person just give them both a game loss. So I do think it's very important to just understand the perspectives, and this is why I think it's certainly just a difference of opinion. But it is still weird to me that the rules suggest you get the judge. The judge will probably never ever be there in time to prevent the board state from not being accepted by both players. Otherwise you wouldn't have had to have the third party interfere anyway. And then the judge, it will then be normal for the judge to say, well, you both thought it worked that way, so just continue playing it. And in reality, we're now just wasting everybody's time. So I don't know if that's like the biggest deal, but it just was very weird to me, and I've been kind of hung up on it, really. And again, it's not a big deal. It's not like a bad thing. I really think that that's part of the communication issue. I think that I was privy to like a very specific kind of a thing, and it hasn't like really hurt anybody, right? Like it's not like any of the other issues where people have felt, people have been upset about what happened, but it's still just extremely weird. I saw your tournament report on Facebook, how you built it very early, and you were like a surprise show up. You're like a surprise Royal Rumble entrant, It just, you had talked so much about not showing up and then made it at the last minute. I agree. I think anytime you see a play against rules, you should, as a bystander, you should be able to ask them to halt, get a judge, and let the judge handle it at that moment. Yeah, and I think that's really the issue there is I was talking about how it's so weird to tell the players, hey, stop, I'm going to go call a judge on you, especially if it's something where it would end up in a game loss for both people, because it's both players' responsibilities, and you can't really give a penalty to just one player, because that opens you up for rule sharking. And the accepted board state, in my opinion, at the very least, this is how I understand it, right? Like, this is my take on card gaming rules. The accepted board state to continue the game is specifically to protect players from angle shooting or rule sharking, however you want to put it. It's specifically to protect a player from having their opponent let them resolve ready, get, set, go, check the card, put the cards in their stage, and then later call a judge and the judge finds out and then has to give a game loss out. It feels wrong to give it to the player that didn't play the card right, that made the mistake, or unintentionally, intentionally, whatever, like, cheated, made the mistake, however you want to put it. I know people get upset if you use the word cheated, but in this specific example, I'm just trying to explain the infraction. I don't know, I'll just call it the rules infraction. So, player A makes a rules infraction, player B knows it. They let the game state become irreparable, which in our card game is as soon as you play the card, right? And again, you can argue about how to repair it from there. So a lot of people said just remove the card checked and the cards built from the game, like super remove them. I don't know about that. I don't even know if that's really great. But you don't really want to give out a game loss when their opponent let them do it, and you don't want to give a game loss to both players, and you don't want to let people rule shark. So it's not an easy solution, and that's why I think it's okay to have different philosophies. I think there needs to be some clarification on when they're implemented, and I don't even know if there really needs to be that kind of communication with players outside of judges being able to explain that to players, right? Like, and that's the other thing too, is like, does every judge have this same philosophy? Are judges coached on that? Luckily, Aspire has been out there in the community talking about how that is probably the highest priority. I think he said it's up there, but again, it's not an easy thing to solve, right? It's a priority, but there is some friction still probably on how to resolve that. So that was my round one. was just going around chilling, soaking it in. Fast forward to pretty much the end of the event. My lunch break was fine. My rounds were fast. I was upset when I got beat by the really fast Froppy deck, the Life Froppy, that was there to play in both the provisional and the regional. But goddamn, do I respect it. It's actually such a cool story. He's actually such a cool guy that I cannot be mad. It's like a guy riding up on a motorcycle and stealing your lunch, and you're just like, damn, that was cool, So that wasn't that bad at all. But towards the end of the event, I don't remember specific timelines. I remember being really upset at specific timelines, and my personal experience, again, this is just me trying to get my story out, because Phil really kind of summed a lot of this stuff up for the people that were there. He summed up, and I feel like a lot of this stuff has really been resolved. So I'm really just I'm not trying to speculate or like inform people on what happened, because I clearly still don't really know what happened. But I'm just going to tell you, like, the perspective of the players, right? Like the perspective of a player involved and my side of it. So maybe there's like a missing piece that now makes sense. But at the end of the event, I've got the people I'm with, the people we're going back to the Airbnb with. Final rounds, Jacob Monsieur, I don't know how to say your last name. I forgot to ask him. But his birthday's coming up. He's got an event. He's got a 1K and a teams event, I think, on his birthday. So really cool person in the community. Really cool community that they have. Excuse me. I'm having a lot of trouble. Hopefully I'm not sick. But just really cool guy. Absolutely helped me out. Stellar human being. The people I stayed with, absolutely stellar. Had an absolutely wonderful time. Would not have had anywhere near as good of a time if I wasn't staying with them. But, you know, they're wanting to get food. And they've all played in the side events. They've all dropped from the regional. They're hanging out there just because I'm making top cuts, and they're helping me out, you know? And I remember telling them, like, we can just leave. You know, I'll find this stuff out later. I can just leave, you know? And the last thing, but I wanted to, if I remember correct, I wanted to see if they were doing deck checks tonight. I've had it where, you know, sometimes they want to do the deck check while you're still there, right? Because, man, this is so weird. This is not something I was planning to complain about, but it just kind of makes sense. It is kind of interesting to do the deck check only in the morning, you know, because, I mean, you want to make sure that they play the top cuts with the right deck. Obviously, you don't want them to change it later because they'll know their matches and pairings. But, you know, doing the deck check now at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really matter if you're not doing it during a round because you can just swap the right cards out at the end of the event. So I guess you can't really. But it just seems weird to me to be doing a deck check like once. But the whole deck check thing, you know, I've had it where they do deck checks at night and then in the morning, you know, like usually they come by at the end of your round though. Like if they know that you're at the top tables, they come by and they do it right at the end of the round, so you can't just like, you know, shuffle the right cards in and then present the deck list that you actually entered with. Not that it's such a weird way to cheat. I don't know how many people have really tried to just have fake sideboard cards, at least in this community, but it is part of the integrity of the event. It is something that should absolutely be done. But so I just want to make sure that they're not doing like a top round of top cuts tonight or anything screwy. But I remember thinking I should just see if they want to deck check me now, you know. And we're waiting around. I asked somebody who to talk to, and they're like, oh, you'd have to probably ask I don't remember if they said head judge or TO. I think I got both. You know, they were like, you should ask the head judge or the TO. And then I'm like, where are they? And it's like, one's over there talking to Brad, one's over there talking to Marquise, you know, or whatever it was. It was just like no one could really give me an answer. And I was like, well, fuck it. Let's just leave. I'll be back by 10 anyway. You know, I'll be back like well before 10 probably. So that was my mentality. That was just going based off of previous events and the fact that I had not been given any other information. I don't remember getting an email for this event. I could have lost it. It could be my spam. I was in the Discord going, where do I submit my deck list? Because I don't have like the email that I normally use. Click the link. And that's something they do to help me, right? Like that's not something they necessarily have to do. They just have to provide the way to do it through the app like I had. So that's not really a complaint, but it is the kind of thing where I never expected 8:30 to be the time. So we're there for at least an hour, and this is when the whole like people refreshing pairings thing starts to go on. I still have no real clue what the deal with that was, because I thought the issue was specifically that if you did the math for one side of the issue, like for example, if you did the math for people who played against Brad's tiebreakers, it seemed to be a different formula than the one that did it for Marquise's tiebreakers, which his shouldn't have changed, I thought, but I don't really know. Apparently Tim Keefe has figured it out and has even gotten feedback from the BCP people, and I think he'll be doing maybe like a news update with it, but he's apparently gotten the answer about it's a known incident that the specific tiebreakers will not be updated live or correctly until you like push a round through or something like that. But I remember the event staff asking like specific questions about the problem, and there just seeming to be like a difference, because they were like, well, yeah, we refreshed it, you know, or we posted it after that. You have to refresh again or whatever, but it changed very often. And so we were kind of like, okay, now is the event over? Like, now is the event over? Like, now is the event over? Until it was at least 10 o'clock. It was 10 o'clock, and I didn't know if, like, the event was over, if points were in. I thought it changed one last time after 10:30. I know it was about 11 when we finally left. I think it was after 11 when we actually finally left because we had to come back and just be like, are you serious? Because one of the people I was with, Zach, had gone up and finally asked somebody, and he came back and told me 8:30 for the deck check. And I thought he was fucking with me because of how late we were there. And again, this whole time we just want to leave. This whole time the people I'm with are like, trying to go get dinner and have been there since whatever provisional or teams event they last played. I guess day one it would have just been a provisional, but whenever their day was over, they were just hanging out waiting for me because my dumbass managed to go X11, and we're like, okay, well, let's wait around a little bit for the announcement, right? Like, I want to hear my name. Let's be real. I want to hear my name. I like it when people tag me in Discord. I like to hear my name. It's about the only thing you really get with I guess you get 2 extra promos, but, with the top 16, that's pretty much all you get with the announcement, right? You get to hear him say your name. You get to pump your fist up in the air. So, I'm like, let's just wait for that. It's got to be coming pretty soon. Because if there's one thing I know about the Jasco employees, man, I know that they want to get the fuck out of there because they know it's going to be, they know going into it that's going to be a long-ass day and shit and that they got to be on top of stuff. And so I know that they want to get the fuck out of there too. They've been there longer than me. A lot of them at least have been there longer than me that day. So I know that they don't want to be here. I know they don't want to be dealing with this shit. So... taking that in mind, it's kind of like, all right, we're still waiting, and finally, I think, there's no real timeline for all this stuff, because I went up to Bromley, and I was like, bro, did they tell you 8:30? And he looked at me, and he was like, there's no way. He just, I could see, I could see the color in his face straight, where he's like, there's just no way. There's no way that can't be right. So he went up and he asked the poor soul that, probably has been getting asked the same question this whole time, about when we got to be here. Because at this point, I don't even know strictly if I'm in top cuts or whatever. I'm pretty much guaranteed. I'm not stupid, but like something could go wacky, whatever. But we need to know when we're going to be back. And my buddy Andrew needs to know if he needs to be back. And I'm just ready to leave and find out later from the phone, but I would have had to tag people in Discord and ask them. I would have had to show up. Like if I had actually left, I'm trying to think what the odds are. If we actually just cut and run at like 9:30, whatever it was, what were the odds that I would have found out, that people I'm with would have found out that the deck checks were for 8:30 in the morning, right? But here's the kicker. We get there, and this is when there's like a whole lot of conversation. I guess, I don't know, that might be skipping over it, because where the whole, I guess, debacle of the scene comes from is when I asked Bromley about the time, he's like, I gotta know. I got people to move, mouths to feed, dinner, sleep to be had, showers to be had. Maybe people got to check in, maybe people dropped off got off the plane and they got to check into their hotel for the night or whatever, right? So, probably not the case, but, you expect to have one night in between, your day one and day two. So this is when we're like, come on, you have to tell us what's going on. Like, you have to let us know. And that's when they're like, look at your pairings tomorrow morning, I think they said, or like it should be good now, but then it changed in the morning, so that was weird, but got sorted. And they're like, to his credit, I don't know the gentleman's name, but I can't remember if he was head judge or head of organized play or whatever, but there was a guy who stepped up, talked to Bromley, and was like, took responsibility and but then he did turn around and just go, I need you here at 8:30. So it just seemed kind of weird. I know that there's probably nothing they can do. That's basically what the TO told us when it comes to the pairing softwares. It's like, what do you want us to do? And for the most part, the answer is always just talk to us. Just make announcements. And that's tough when there is no answer. But let us know that there's no answer, because at least we know that you don't know and you're in the same boat as us. Some level of commiseration over that, I promise, will help just a little bit. It very much sucks to just give out blank information or whatever, but you know, it was so weird, because I gotta know I was there till after 11, actually. I don't know, but because we tried to get KFC like across the street, and I remember we helped a lady with her car died, and me and Jacob pushed it in out of the way for her into a spot. And I just remember looking at my phone at one point and going, man, it's already midnight, I haven't taken a shower. You know, it just, when the guy finally said, I'm sorry, I take responsibility, this is all sucked, whatever, I need you here at 8:30 though, it kind of felt really dismissive, and I was really upset, because I was like, damn, like, there is no wiggle room. There has to be a reason he's doing that. And I understood that, but I was like, wow, at least finally at 11 o'clock, I know that I actually have the earliest deck check I've actually seen for an event ever. Like, I guess I've had it early at like 8:30 for like the West Coast on an online event, you know, but I've never seen it 8:30 Eastern. You know, I've never had to be there that early. And then I'll tell you the absolute cherry on top. I promise we're getting over the whining and the bullshitting, and I'll talk about actual gameplay and cards. But Barry's talking about, oh yeah, I was pissed. I didn't get out of there till roughly 11:30. Didn't show up Sunday till almost 9. And when they asked, I said flat out, you can deal with it. You had me here till 11, so you can deal with me being 23 minutes late. Yeah, bro. I remember we were stopping at the gas station. Some couponer was being upset, and you know, our driver's like, you gotta go get Jacob. Like, he's behind the couponer. We gotta leave. And I'm like, I dare them to fucking DQ me at 8:31, right? So it's actually hilarious that you didn't show up until 9, because I don't know if you heard this, Barry, but we got there at 8:25, 8:27. And there's a giant group of people outside, and you're like, wow, that's really close to 8:30. You know, at the time, I'm assuming they're not there yet because the doors are locked. I don't see anybody inside. And I remember Andrew holds up his phone at like 8:27, and he's like, they have a message that says, come on in. And there's like a collective, you know, kind of guffaw. Like, you know, you can just hear the air out of the small group of people. Just like, well, gee, we'd really fucking like to. It's not like someone hasn't tried the doors. And so Jacob, God bless his soul, you know, I don't know what fucking magic he thought of, or why no one had tried this yet, I guess. But he he hits the wheelchair, the handy-capable door, and the doors do open. And I'm just like, thank God, you know. Did not expect that, but it did work out. You know, when you try everything, a solution comes along. So we get in, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, this man saved the event. Because the text that just says, come on in, I'm really hoping there was some other text along with it that was, you know, giving instructions. I was really hoping that there'd be like someone on their way to the front door. Maybe they were going to send someone at 8:30. I don't know. But Jacob saved the event. And I walked in telling them, I pointed right at him. I said, you thank this man. Because we were all really confused and really upset why the doors were locked real close to 8:30 and there's people in here. But you know what the absolute kicker is? The absolute favorite thing that I have to get rid of this person from my chat. No advertisement. Come on now. But the absolute kicker, the absolute best part of this story is when I walk in, I mentioned to one of the guys sitting down, you know, I tell him, thank this man because he got us in here, because the doors were locked and none of us could get in. and he hit the handicap button to let us in. And the guy sitting there, I don't know who he is. I didn't get his name, don't know him. The guy sitting there goes, "Oh, yeah, that happened to us." And I just remember thinking, like, man, you think you'd tell somebody, like, I'm hoping that someone had, like, included that in a second message to Andrew that was coming through. I don't even know who told him come on in. I just remember thinking that was really weird, and, like, again, that's the kind of thing where, like, it's nobody's job, really. It's nobody's responsibility. It's kind of weird. I think someone told Bromley it was splitting hairs or something, but it was just really insensitive. And it's the kind of stuff where, like, after everything boiled up, like, it's just really unfortunate, right? Like, it was, if we were actually out there till 8:31, it's just the principle of the matter at that point. You can call it splitting hairs, you can call it whining, you can call it complaining. All of those things, unfortunately, are very human to do. If that's it, no one's perfect, and if that's when we gotta be ugly, if that's when we gotta be the smaller people, man, I'll take it when I'm cranky at 8:30 in the morning. I'll take it when I've been at the venue an extra 2 hours, just because nobody can tell me, no one can officially tell me to leave. Like, no one can officially tell me when to be back. No one can officially tell me, that the information will be given to me, and then I guess this is part of the cherry on top. It's all wrapped up in the same stuff, man. We're there for an hour and a half at least, and they do last call for deck checks like over a fucking hour later. Why did you tell me you need me here at 8:30? He didn't say we're gonna start doing deck checks at 8:30 and play later. It didn't come out like that. I won't claim to have a great memory. I won't claim to know everything, but I can swear to you, the man did not say, like, deck checks will be between 8:30 and 9 or something. And again, you can call this splitting hairs if you want, but I'm pretty sure the verbiage was, I need you guys here at 8:30. And, deck checks will be at 8:30. And to fucking sit around for an hour, over an hour, I don't think we were playing until 10, to sit there and just be like, this is the time I was going to be here anyway. The deck checks are done for some people, and the decks are just sitting there, whatever, to not get playing, to not get this stuff rolling. My flight was originally supposed to be for 8:30 Sunday night. So I was thinking to myself, all right, it's a trade-off. Like, I was trying to really not, like, make a mountain out of a molehill, because at the end of the day, it's not as bad as, like, getting a bad disqualification or not getting prizing, or there's a lot of worse stuff that could happen, right? But it's adjacent to all this stuff, to stuff like that, where you're watching your friend get bumped out of Top Cuts and everyone's confused, where you're watching people get in trouble for cheating, collusion, whatever, for the dice rolling thing, and you're not really sure how it's being handled. You don't know if it's a DQ or a game loss. You don't know if it's affecting your actual tiebreakers. You don't know if the rounds, that you played them are going to count at all, if you were before or after them, just stuff like that, where they didn't have the most reassuring ability. Again, it's all tough, man, and it's no one's fault, but it is someone's responsibility. And without, like, a certain level of communication, transparency, whatever, like, without the ability to, get that information out, like, all it really took was at, like, 9:30, an announcement on the PA to say, hey, we're working on the final standings. Deck checks are at 8:30. We'll have it, it'll be updated before the morning. We're gonna get it done tonight. It'll be updated before, by 8:30, kind of a thing. So, like, people who are upset that they might have to wake up early and check the pairings, or tell them we'll have it, Well, I don't know. I guess you can't promise when to have it if you don't know if the stuff's going wrong or whatever. And I think they had it soon. Like, I think, they were pretty confident there was no error. We just couldn't explain the math it was actually using to make sure that there was no error, right? Like, that was the whole problem, was people were trying to figure out how it got these numbers, and also having too many sets of numbers to work with and decipher. So really the cherry on top is being there the whole time, not knowing if there's even going to be a Top Cuts announcement, not knowing who I'm going to play until like 9 o'clock that morning, and then not playing until 10 after being told to be there at 8:30, after being told it's an issue. That's the most disrespectful thing to me the whole time. Of all the dismissive attitudes I've dealt with, and it's fine, you can dismiss me. I'm not that important. I'm really not. I'm just, even if you want to, keep every player in like good customer service, the reality is that you can be dismissive of one person. You don't have to deal with their shit. They don't have to deal with my shit. They don't owe me that, right? Like, they don't owe me anything except the opportunity to play in the event up until I spoil that, but at the same time, like, there was no apology for that. There was no explanation for that. There was a lot of weird tension and energy around it, I remember in my Top Cuts match, just to kind of put a bow on it, I'll probably come up with something to complain about later, but just to put a bow on it was something a little more lighthearted. It was really fucking weird to me that judges were having conversations with us while we played, and it did not upset me because I was playing against my friend, and I was going to side them out anyway, but a judge straight up told a guy how many indiscriminate shock are in my deck. A judge straight up was like, well, he's only run the 2. And he caught himself, and then he tried to back it up and be like, oh, I can just speculate. But, like, it was pretty fucking obvious, It was like round 6 probably. Yeah, it had to be, like, right before Bromley. So, it was pretty fucking obvious they just let one slip. And I'm not mad. Like, of all the shit I was mad about, I'm not mad. But that just... Imagine if I was... Imagine if, it's kind of a gaffe, no one's perfect, but imagine if I was. And so to hear Phil having that same issue, with judges being, and I guess, see, and a totally different judge in my Top Cuts match was straight out making, pop culture references and joking as we went by and dropping little one-liners and like, man, you guys are human and I love you. I love what you do. I love what you want to do for the game. And I'm cracking jokes with Jose. I'm having a great time with my friends. But it is still just kind of weird. It is still just like not that normal most of the time. Especially if like I didn't call a judge over and it's not just like part of him watching the game now. You know what I mean? Yeah, literally to him. Like, literally talking to him, Barry. He said, are you serious? Judge mentioned card counts in your deck right there for the opponent to hear. Yeah, he did it, like, addressing to him, like, we were sitting there joking. He's talking about, like, oh, yeah, I was, like, ready for the indiscriminate. I had these 2 lows. And the judge, like, well, he only runs 2. And, like, again, he caught himself. It was kind of weird. I think I might have even been trying to, like, talk about the counts in my deck or something like that. So, like, but that's for me to bluff, right? Like, that's a huge part of my strategy. And I'll bring up the deck. I'll start talking about the deck in a minute. Yeah, I wouldn't blame you, dude. And this is tough because, like, I don't want to be a fucking nerd. But when you talk about competitive integrity, I remember for Top Cuts, I remember asking him, like, do we get deck lists or whatever? Because they put the deck lists out, right? God, there's so many it's little things. It's fucking so many little things. I didn't think I'd have, like, this many different little topics. I thought it was really just going to be, like, my flight sucked. That conversation was weird, but it didn't suck. And then the whole fiasco with having to be there at 8:30 and then not actually having to fucking be there at 8:30. But This is like a big thing for a lot of people, especially if you're not going to give me a deck list. You can't talk about this is something I was bad on commentary. I was, Tamron Cardwell, God bless his soul, was like, hey bro, don't be giving out numbers on the deck list, and because players from the event can come in and listen to the stream, and that's on me. It slipped my mind, so I'm not trying to be upset, and I was having a good time. I'll be honest, the bias, I was gonna make top cuts. I was winning. My bias was that I was X-1, and I was going into like a game 3, and I was signing those cards out. So I have a lot of bias to have not gotten upset. But if you were about to lose, right? I see. I know what you're saying. The last heat wave sold for 6,500. It could have cost me that, and you're right. And that's that's what I'm talking about. My bias was that I was so good, but it was, I really want to stress, Barry, it really was a small thing. I really think it was not the biggest deal. I think that the context really was about like me bluffing around it, and he did try to cover with like, well, I can only speculate, or like I only saw 2 or whatever. I think there was one point where he's like, oh well, the deck list I looked at could have been wrong, or something like that, or I could have been looking at a different deck list. I remember thinking, like, don't tell them that you're looking at deck lists, bro. That's so it wasn't handled super well, but I just, I don't think flipping out in this instance would have been the right call. In this specific one instance, if you were at a top cuts match, even if it's my boy Jose, I'm flipping out. That's just the truth. I'm a drama queen at whatever, like... If it's in a top cuts match and I fucking wrote the deck with Jose gave me the deck, I'm fucking flipping out. So that's the context, right? It was very fortunate to happen late in the day in a round where I was having fun with my buddy. If I was playing against someone I didn't know, if I was playing against, people who have had known issues, with judging in the past and stuff like that, I probably would have been way more upset. Yep. Yeah. No, you're not wrong, Barry. You're 100% not wrong. I'm just, and again, if you blew up at him, I don't think you'd be wrong at all. Well, okay, I should say, don't blow up at him. Just, if you had an issue, if you wanted to walk out, if you wanted a refund or whatever, like, I fully if I had lost that, right? Like, it's different. If I lose that, I probably am going and complaining. Like, that's just the reality of it. If I'm losing and it is costing me a chance at top cuts, and this is the reality. I'm trying to be very transparent. I'm trying to be very human with you guys, that, when you're upset, you're more likely to complain to get something out of it. And so I could have brought it up at the time, and maybe in like some altruistic world where everything's black and white and I just do the right thing and stuff like that, and where I hold like everybody to every possible tenet of faith, at every moment, try to make everyone be perfect. Maybe I do, but even while I'm winning, but it did not seem like the worst offense of it, but the context is king. And again, if it had happened any later, if it had happened in any other sort of situation, if it had happened while a game was going on, like this could have been after the third, no, it couldn't have been after the third game, or else I wouldn't have even mentioned, I would have just fucking told him. It was definitely during like a sideboarding kind of thing. But it's very specific. What's really interesting is it's very specific to the way that I play the deck. And I think I'll just jump into it because I don't really want to dwell too much on this issue, because Phil has had this issue and he's talked about it, and I know Aspira was in his chat, reaffirming people, that it is being handled. So it has been talked to. I just need to give my side of it, right? I need to give my experience with it, because it is more than one judge. It is. I had this happen with more than one judge where they're talking, and only one like gave up the information where it actually would have been like, fuck that. But Yeah, Barry's talking about, I get that and I understand. I would have complained because not only did my current opponent hear me, but my future opponent tops could have been next to you, played different. And that's true. That's 1000% true, man. And this deck was actually predicated on the 1.3 million bluff. Like, not gonna lie, if you saw my deck profile video, the fucking title is "Don't Play 1.3 Million." That's not clickbait. That is actually how I played the deck. It has to be there. You have to show them that you have 1.3, and it is integral to late game strategies. There was like one match the whole day where I really went to a late game, and that was not even like I think it was still turn 3. It was a Kirishima 2 dot. Of course, 2 dot, but it was very important. It was very, very important that I showed people that I have them in my deck, but that I almost never played them. And it was my favorite part of the deck, and it 1000% could have ruined my fucking day. If it had happened in Top Cuts again to somebody I fucking showed the deck list to, it could have ruined my fucking day. But I'm not trying to be that serious all the time. And again, I was in a good position, and if he's telling them that I have them in the deck and I'm citing them out currently, that doesn't necessarily seem like a normal play. So again, I would not blame anyone for being upset. I really wouldn't. And I didn't need to make a stink about it at the time. I was thought this is still before like any of like the real issues, and I knew that if I wanted to complain, I'd be doing it here. That's really the truth, because I'm not trying to ruin anybody's time at the event or whatever. And it did not, at the time, I did not think it was really impacting the gameplay as much as it absolutely could have. As much as judges 1000% should not let that stuff slip. But it almost bothered me more that I had a judge just kind of joking around with me and Jose in Top Cuts. That was almost more annoying to me, that judges were just kind of going around. And I remember there was a judge talking like over me. The judge who's like joking around is like talking over our table to a table across from us, while the, I believe, head judge, or at least the person doing the Top Cuts announcements, is like running down the, "Hello, welcome players, you have so much time, and don't be a dick and play really slow just because it's untimed," and yada yada yada. And I'm like, I'm sorry, man, can you my fucking, my autism just struck out, like the sensory overwhelming. And I'm blaming myself. I'm trying to be very clear that like, this is a personal side of things, but at the same time, it is indicative to an overall experience that is shared by many players. But, the sensory overload or something got to me, and I hope the guy's not upset. I maybe should have talked to him, but I don't think this was a big deal at all. He didn't really seem that bothered by it, but he did move over like behind me and then talk louder and stuff, so it wasn't actually what I wanted. But I'm like, "Hey, can you start over? I'm sorry, I can't hear you," And, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't know who to address to get it solved, but I literally can't hear the guy telling me all this stuff that I probably already know. But it's just really annoying to have two people like talking over you while I'm trying to respect him and listen to him, So, and I really don't want to have a stupid fucking question that he just answered, you know what I mean? Like, so there's that. While we're being nitpicky and whiny, because I know Barry's got my back on this one. You'll be interested to know this. I asked them, they're like, "Your deck list will be on the table." And I was like, "Oh, do we get to see our opponent's deck list?" Because in my head, I'm betting that they're just lying there. And again, it's such a scummy, stupid, shitty, trivial thing. But if you're thinking about the prize as $6,500, if you're thinking of like a $6,000 prize, you might want to peek over and look at a deck list, I can tell you for a fact, Christopher Bromley had his deck list out on the table. My ass was looking at that attack lineup. He's probably not, I don't think he's in the chat. I don't think he's listening to this, but If he's watching the VOD for this later, my ass was fucking scanning that attack lineup. It is what it is. It's the most interesting thing on the table in front of me. And I knew at some point we'd get paired together too. So full disclosure, I definitely peeped that deck list, at least in passing. But so we sit down to the tables and it's Jose, and so again, this is a lot of context to make this all cool. But my deck list is like folded, so they can see like the starting character, which is cool, probably normal, whatever. But it's like skewed a little bit, and they can also see that I'm mainboarding a Kyoka Jiro. So again, if you really want to like split like that, splitting hairs, and you really want to be, you really want to be like upset about stuff, like I could definitely label that too, because the spicy, it's not like showing off an electric jolt in the deck. It's not like showing off the count of, like a 4 of card that's obviously a 4 of. I think it might have shown like the first foundation on the deck list too. Like maybe it could have given away like a 1 of shock treatment. But, Jose commented on it. You know what I mean? Like, so I know he could see it. Like, he hadn't seen me play this deck. I hadn't actually played with him. Right, they know I have the only fucking +0 mid block in the goddamn symbol. They know I have an extra 6 check, right? Like, I could potentially have 5-6 checks now because of arrogant disposition. So, like, my deck list is in there, and I'm like, well, that's great. Now you can, you get some information. And he's literally like, what? Like, you care? I know you're running 1 Jiro, so he can read it. He knows which character it is. He had never seen my deck list. We had never played. We didn't play test at all. I kept it kind of actually secret from the Florida guys because I felt like they weren't going to have the best experience against it. But I knew that they were also high on the good Jiro. I thought Bromley might be playing good Jiro. And I knew that my matchup against that was fucking awful. I knew my matchup into it was so trash that bluffing 1.3 million was going to be not only integral to my strategy, but also preying on the fact that I might be doing some weird shit that Bromley's not used to, that my specific playstyle might help me out. And instead it was Jose. So I don't get the sack against Jose. Once or twice as a 5-hander, he's absolutely bricked on me, but I don't get the same luck I do as when I get like that final round Bromley. So, not only do they now know that I have the Jiro main boarded for that blocking and stuff, they also know essentially that I can like slip into that character that is. Again, it's a pretty obvious choice, but I think a lot of air decks are choosing Toru and stuff like that. And while Jiro might be the most obvious side for Denki, maybe my 6 check next time is a Toru, right? Like maybe my extra character in the main board is a Toru, and they get information on that. So it really depends. Like if you want to be serious about competition and you want to try to have a 0 tolerance policy on affecting competitive integrity, these are things that's worth talking about. These are things that are kind of interesting too, because it's interesting to point out like just the tiny little margins that you have. I absolutely had a game where an opponent thought that I was in a check a 5 or die situation, but I was not. I could have checked anything, and I could have checked at least a 3. I could have not checked a 2, which there were none left in my deck, but he had only seen the 3 sound waves. So like in his mind, I can check poorly and die here, but I know that I cannot fail this check because I have a +0 block. So that play kind of goes out the fucking window. That it then becomes a he has to have it situation, but in that particular matchup, I had been through a large portion of my deck. So little stuff like that, it's just frustrating, man. It's the kind of thing where we put up with that shit, and then finally it blows up when it's, hey, you have to be here at 8:30, right? It's all these little things that like the head judge or the guy giving the announcements, he didn't deal with. He's not he's been doing other stuff. He didn't know about the guy giving away the 1.3 million info. He's off doing other shit while the guy's talking to us in Top Cuts. I keep forgetting that earning the points matters and they go by wins and stuff like that. So, I guess doing the broadcast, since I don't really get points for that, I don't think I'm really in contention anyway unless I, win a fucking event. So, which I know that I just sounded kind of morose about that, but I'm very excited to be a part of the commentary. I'm very happy that they've chosen me for the events that they have. I hope to get better at it. I hope to fix my setup and everything, get better suits, get better clothes and shit like that, and upgrade, but it's all a process. But yeah, so it's all the little tiny stuff that stacks up. And I had a good time, but my highlight of the weekend was sitting in the rain watching cats play with chickens, missing provisionals hasn't hurt. Okay, fuck yeah, we're still in this. I've done great at regionals. I mean, I didn't top one of them, but we're fucking in there if it's just regionals, I guess. So yeah, I don't know how long you've been here, Andrew. If you heard me just bitching about judges telling people shit that's in my deck, but there is a surprising amount of that technically, and again, I don't really want to be upset about it, but I do want to mention it. I don't know if Aspire is still lurking or if they're gonna come back and read this or whatever, but just know it's not a once in a blue moon thing. I had a conversation again that was just very dismissive of the human nature element of judging and how people like to throw the word cheat around a lot, and people like to get uppity and very laissez-faire about something that now you're seeing your players care very much about, because you've given them this carrot on the stick and now acting like the carrots, the stuff in between you and the carrot just isn't that big of a deal. So really kind of confusing, just really kind of frustrating that I don't really know the judging philosophy of the game I'm playing, and really kind of confusing that I thought, everyone's got different opinions and different ways that they'd handle stuff, but I really thought that there was going to be a more linear solution to that, but I don't think it was all bad. I didn't really have a judge call the whole weekend myself. Basically, at this point, it's really just logistics that I was upset about. Maybe logistics and attitude, but again, they want to get the fuck out of there. They've been there all day and they've been dealing with people having fucking problems. So if I was cranky because of my flight and all my bullshit, I'm sure they were cranky from dealing with fucking gamers all day. So, and again, Phil commented on a lot of stuff, and I'm just kind of reiterating a lot of that. But those are the things I specifically really dealt with. A conversation where a judge just didn't really seem to care about judging mistakes and their philosophy around certain implementations, I guess, of the rules philosophies and stuff just didn't make sense to me. To sum up, the way that you're supposed to call a judge as a third party, but then as a third party you now have to get them to pause the game state, which of course you can't do on a stream game, right? But so a third party gets the judge, they come and try to resolve the issue, but it's always too late. So if the acceptable board state makes it so that they can't do anything about it, that's pretty much how it's always going to happen. And so it's pretty much never worth it to go get the judge anyway, right? Again, that's not how it's always going to play out, obviously, but that is essentially, the sum zero version of that story that you would expect to be consistent, right? We're looking for consistency in our results, from the arbitration. So it just kind of hurts my head to think about I'm missing something. And again, they explain their situation well. You know, they explain their side of it and their philosophy on it, and it just seems like a weird difference of opinion, and it seems like it just doesn't gel with the written word of the rules. So I just want some better communication there. I'd like less communication from judges while I'm fucking playing my games. No offense, I love you guys a lot. It just, you know, it just seems like, again, a really basic thing. It seems like a very normal thing. Now and then again, you know, but not to the extent of the judge who told Phil he's not there to interrupt. So, you know, we got our spectrum of, you know, please don't fucking crack jokes with me or tell them what's in my deck. Please do stop people from resolving cards wrong. Can we get somewhere in the middle? Now, every judge is different, so they're not going to be in the same place on the scale, but we just got to find some normalcy with it. Really just kind of wild. I don't know any of their names, bro. I really don't. I don't know any of the judges. I'm terrible with names anyway. I'm pretty bad with faces. You know, the autism gets to you sometimes. It's just not a skill I really have. It's something I really feel bad about because I was talking about how I like to hear my name, you know, with like the top cuts. I like to be pinged. I like to be shouted out. And I actually fucking suck at it. So, you know, I'm working on it. I really am. But there's too many factors at play. But it's not, you know, and I think another thing that really bothered me about it is I don't think it was ever a judge that we called over. You know, they were judges walking by. We might have had a judge clarify it's how something worked, you know, because I was playing like sports festival against an Ochaco or something, you know. There might have been some that we flagged them down just to be like, this is how it works, right? Like we're resolving it. Maybe we were talking something out and the judge stopped by, you know, and commented, yeah, that's right. And that's cool. Love that. Keep doing that. Keep doing that, right? You know, you're walking by and you see players clearly, you know, both fucking working something out. You know, pay attention. Love that. Don't help them sideboard against me, though. It just seems so weird, man. It's so funny. Because I really did have a good time, and I'm trying to get off this subject. I'll start talking about the deck list now, because if anyone wants the drama and the controversy and the bullshit, they can rewind. They can catch the VOD. But it just it's kind of weird. It's not funny, haha. It's funny, ludicrous. But so actually playing in the event was very cool. Met a lot of cool people. All my opponents were cool. Yeah. Hey, man, it was, you know, it was my boy Bradley. He was sticking up for people in Florida. Also, hello, Brandon Jones. Thank you for helping me play in the regional. And I have those sports festival stadiums for you on the way Friday. Couldn't have done it without you, buddy. Literally couldn't have been there. You know, wouldn't have made it. Wouldn't have been able to play this deck and everything. So, oh yeah, and I'm kind of in a weird spot, Barry. I'm kind of there too. Like, I don't have any specific judges I think I'd pick out, but like, I guess maybe if I recognize him again, I try to, you know, this is something I've talked to a couple people about, but like growing up and playing sports, I used to get really upset, and like one of the things I'd hear and one of the things coaches would help teach me, and one of the things that's really important in sports is having a short memory for mistakes that you make. When it comes to competing, you know, in the card games and stuff, one of the reasons I've never done like a tournament report is I don't really remember my games right after they happen. Yeah, Trot too. I do have face and name blindness. Very bad. So much so that like when I met Jose Narono for the first time ever, I still don't really know what his face looks like. I know he looks like from like video, like kind of weird, but I know he looks like from video. But it was weird because like I'd be near him and talking to him, and it's like the exact same as talking to him on Discord, and it did not feel like the first time I ever met him. And I still don't think I'd like be able to spot him out at a Publix. You know, it's fucked, but it is what it is. um, so yeah, so that's something that I do always feel kind of shitty about with the tournament report. But growing up, I used to dwell on mistakes a lot. I started out, being a tall kid just really helped, right? I used to play soccer on my sister's team because she's 2 years older than me, and even as like a 4-year-old, I was too big, right? And at that age, it doesn't really matter. They're just trying to get it so the kids don't bully each other. But playing baseball, playing Little League in Florida, I remember very specifically my first game playing, right at like it's like the bracket right before you get to play for like the Little League World Series, like 9 to 10. I've always been younger. I've always been like late in the year, so I'm like the younger bracket and stuff. So, that probably helped a little bit when like things were all age restricted. And I just remember, like, first game, I was batting in third, started up the rally, like, hit a triple, got a game ball, all that good shit, just stupid nostalgic memories. And, like, making small mistakes, after that, and, like, seeing the season kind of crumble away, like, I got really fucking bad at baseball really fucking fast. I got really checked out because stupid little mistakes, getting corrected on stuff and not having it stick. And one of the things that really helped me at such a super young age was my dad helping me to see things as a new game. With baseball, it's kind of easy, like every new pitch, right? Like every new batter. You don't, yeah, you have to, obviously, if there's someone on base now, like it changes the game, but like, from a fielding perspective, especially, like you're fielding the same, pretty much on the same field. You gotta account for everyone that's on base, but just because you dropped a line drive doesn't mean you'll drop the next one. And the only way you're really gonna drop that next one is if you keep thinking about it. Which it can make it kind of hard to learn too, because you're actively trying to forget that you made the mistake, but you have to also remember not to make that mistake. So that's the key part, not walking into it. But so when it comes from like round to round, game to game, like I very rarely am like thinking about past plays. I'm thinking about like what felt good. I'm not really trying to keep track of all the cards I saw. Like I'm not trying to like play memory games and shit because my memory sucks, right? So I'm usually trying to remember the times when my opponent looks sad, if that makes sense. Like I'm trying to I look for like the shift in their shoulders, I look for the sigh, I look for when they put their cards down. I'm not really looking at their face because people are good at bluffing anyway, and we just talked about the face blindness. Also, thanks for the first time chat, by the way. I'm terrible at the whole streaming thing, Trot, too, but first time chat, so thank you for that. Barry's talking about, honestly, I agree with that. If I make a mistake, I try not to dwell on it. If it costs me a game, that's on me. But when judge costs me a game due to a bad ruling, I don't let that go. Yeah, you want a judge to have a higher standard for sure. And, I get that. And it's tough because I don't want to... Let me just say this before I'll bring up the deck. I'll talk about something else, but it's not easy. I don't envy judges. I don't really want to do their job. One of the reasons I want to get more involved is not only to help my boys out playing the game, get some good judging, but I don't know if I would be a good judge because that player arbitration really is the biggest part. And as the community grows, it's not going to be like me just helping my boys out. And really, I shouldn't be judging for friends of mine, and that makes it kind of tough. But so that did get me for a second. I was about to be like, oh no, did it lie? Were you actually here for every stream? But so yeah, so I want to be clear that it's not like an easy thing to do. I don't know how I feel about people necessarily believing that they just have experience and can tell like who's lying and who's not. That's like a specific point of contention to me because I feel like a really good liar, you really wouldn't know, right? If you want to get super nerdy about it, you can just think about it like Dungeons and Dragons skills, where it's like, yeah, you have a great sense motive because you're very experienced and you've been here, but what if someone's actually just better at lying? What if someone's actually just better at acting? So You know, obviously you could have fucking magicians. You could have Chris Angel fucking play card games if it was really like that. But, you know, from a philosophical standpoint, I kind of wonder. I kind of take some issues. So to wrap it up, just please don't fucking ask people to be there at 8:30. I know people said just have it on the itinerary, and I guess that's like the least you can do. But don't fucking do the 8:30 deck check. And if you are going to do an 8:30 deck check, do the 8:30 deck check. That's probably my biggest complaint, I guess. And that's like, sorry guys, my nose is super itchy. I think I got allergies coming in. If you're going to tell people to be there at 8:30, it better be a fucking reason. And we should be able to get into the building. You know, it just felt like they asked us to be there at 8:30 because somebody was afraid that things would take too long, and then there was no reason for us to be there at 8:30. You know, there's no reason for a lot of things to just really go the way that they did, and I think that's where the frustration comes from. But let's talk about card games. Let's talk about actually playing card games. Where do I have this deck list at? Here we go. Bam. Got a different background and everything. So, yeah, bro, 827. It's fucking sweaty. I think, you know, Bromley's like, I'm from Florida, and the last fucking thing I want to do is sit outside in the heat. Very humid. I don't find it as bad as the Vegas heat personally, because the biggest thing for me is the sun beating down on me. Like, I get mega sweaty. See, I don't know, man. I'm a super fat dude. Like, I get mega sweaty like anywhere I go anyway. So when it's in Vegas, it's like dripping down me, and that's really uncomfortable. And I'd rather just have little spots of wetness on me than like droplets pouring off me. I guess this is getting kind of gross, I guess, for people who aren't into sweating. But you know, yeah, the weather was not fucking pleasant to sit in, and I don't know if you were here for it, Brandon, but the best part is when I got inside to the venue and explained to them that, hey, we were locked out and someone randomly hit the handicap button, and that's the only reason we got in. The guy sitting at the desk went, huh, that happened to us too. You know, and it's like, why the fuck were we outside confused why we can't get in when you guys like went through the same confusion? I don't know. It's very, very weird. I will say that when it comes to the humidity, maybe the biggest difference is that, like, if you go from your car straight into a building, the Vegas heat is better. I think that's really where it comes down, is like, if you step outside at all, you know, like it's so clearly different going like from air conditioning to outside, you know. That has been the one biggest thing, and I think that may be what people talk about, like with the dry heat, is if you're standing outside waiting for a bus, or you're just chilling outside waiting for somebody to let you inside to play a card game, it's practically the same. Oh, thank you, I Seared, for the follow. You gave me the best follow number, so you're officially my favorite follower of all time. I now have the best followers, and I hope to never actually get any more or any less followers. But, you know, if I'm just standing outside, I find them relatively the same so far. It was pretty bad. Like, when I walked outside of the Orlando airport, my glasses, I could hear the noise, like, just straight, like, with condensation. You know, I could hear it happening. It happened so fast. It was crazy. Like, I almost walked into somebody walking, like, out the door. They were coming in, and just almost slammed into them because my glasses fogged up immediately. So going to and from, you know, like your car to a building, you know, and you're not really spending that much time outside. Yeah, the humidity just gets you immediately. And when it comes to the Vegas heat, the dry heat, you can just kind of run inside and escape it. the automatic relief because you're humid. It's all over your body. When you hit that air conditioning, it just hits different though. So a lot of times I get really hot in Vegas, and like going into air conditioning doesn't really help me. It's just kind of like cold around me, but the heat is baked into my skin, you know. So, but I also was born in Florida, and there might be like some leftover immunity to the humidity. My hair cooperated pretty well. If you saw me during the rounds, it was probably really fucked up. Like, it didn't look good pulled up, you know, maybe a little mad scientist shit going on. But like when I actually pulled it out, fixed it, tied it back up, took a shower, you know, the Airbnb and all that stuff, combed it through. I was surprised it didn't poof up mega bad, but I did tie it up to prevent that the very first day and everything. So, weather, you know, weather was not great. Like, weather was not was not fun to sit outside in, but it wasn't too bad. But let's go into the deck, because I really want to do like a deck dissertation. Like Tim Friedlieb, I was in the Discord this morning. I had like an hour-long deck profile video that I was doing because I talked about every card. I was mega jet lagged. I was so fucked up. You know, I was supposed to go to our locals last night. We have like a second locals night on Tuesday. I was supposed to make it to that. I was going to just live stream it just to get it out. But Phil started a live stream because I forgot about the stupid East Coast time thing. And I knew that the Unfun guys stream. But then Phil's doing the pregame stream. And it was 3 hours earlier than I realized because I'm not in fucking Orlando anymore. And you know, I just decided I'll record it and put it up, and then the video got fucked up and it was way too long and the processing error and blah, blah, blah. So I just put up another shitty deck profile that took 20 minutes where I tried really hard not to talk about every card, but there's a couple things I really learned in this while play testing this deck. There's a couple things I really want to talk about. So... well, actually, again, it's like every card. But so I'm just going to go card by card. I'm going to start with the foundations. I'm going to end with the attacks. And if you've seen the deck profile, a little bit of this will be repetitive, but I promise I'm going to go in depth to the things that I learned specifically playtesting for this event. So I'm going to go by difficulty. And the very first thing is no 3 diffs. We cannot afford the 3 difficulties. The sound waves and our turn 1 build and our early game is so very important to us because Denki's Enhance and really his once per game too. But both of those abilities do technically get worse as the game goes on. I think Denki's Enhance is one of the better late game enhances, but only from the perspective that you can gain something from poking and having momentum. And I don't have a lot of good pokes in this deck. I really, you know, I don't know if Air really does have any great ones. On Wavering Slash and Sound Waves are kind of like the best pokes, right? Like in this deck. Meteor Shower technically, Electric Jolt technically, but they combo so well with the once per game, I really don't see them as pokes. If I was poking with an Electric Jolt, I had to feel pretty confident about my board state, or I just didn't have any other choice. A lot of times I can't poke with it because it's a high block, and, you know, just not a lot of my attacks have high blocks. I think it's the only one, actually. Oh, double jab. Double jab, yeah. So double jab you can't poke with either, and Electric Jolt is a fantastic poke, you know, great to put in your momentum, but a lot of times I needed that high block, and my mantra going into this event was to not be married to turn 2 attacking. I didn't want to feel like I had to turn 2 anybody. I didn't want to feel like my deck was designed to turn 2. And in the matchups I really needed to test, specifically Sue and even Tokoyami, both, like attacking turn 2 was the wrong option in playtest. When it came down to actually playing the deck and putting the reps into it, I had almost no games go past turn 3 and only a handful of games all day. And again, I only played 7 rounds. You know, I only played the 7 rounds and then the top cut because my first round opponent didn't show up. And even in top cuts, I got turn 2'd and turn 3'd, you know. Jose did not have to build out to play 7 attacks turn 2 on me. He just needed 1 turn build. I went first. I lost going first. That was like turn 3. And then he turn 2'd me. So, I did not want to think that this was a turn 2 deck. I didn't even really want to think of this as an OTK deck. I didn't want to be married to any one specific strategy. What I did want to do was have a extremely long I wanted to have an extremely long string of otherwise innocuous attacks, like unappealing attacks, and it really matters where in the card pool that you play them. Berlander says, wonder what poke works well for Denki. I wonder. They're talking about Zero Gravity Lift. I don't think that's a particularly great poke, especially if I don't have Sports Festival Stadium. And so I'll cover that, I guess, when I get to the stadium. Just because Kevin Broberg made a great comment on my Facebook. The lack of inclusions of certain cards, the negative space that he talked about, is just as interesting as what I did include. And so I'll talk about those as they become relevant. I really want to have my thoughts organized a little bit on this. I know I'm like the most rambly member of the community, the most rambly YouTuber that we got. So this isn't really my forte. I'm trying to be better and practice the whole live stream thing. But when it comes to the foundation base, I knew that the 2 difficulties were going to be slim pickings. I have 9. I have less than 10 2-diff foundations, and my 2 difficulty asset, I am never playing this as a form. I played this as a form begrudgingly when I didn't have like enough cards to play, and even still, I would typically play a 1 diff and then a 1 diff and then like a 0 diff and then this on a 2 if I had to, right? Like this was still the last card I played, and I hope I would fail it and get it out of my hand. So when it comes to the 2 diffs, Confused is like one of the better silver bullet cards, and it still has an application for me on offense because Andrew Holder had talked up the Drowning in Resentment, and that is like one of the better stun hate sort of parts, packages, I guess you could say. Like damage reduction really does hurt this deck. That's why it was really scary seeing an Earth deck in finals, seeing the Kirishima 2 in finals. I can't remember. It was probably Earth, the Kirishima I played. It's almost certainly had to be Earth because I had learning the standards. So that was one of the harder matchups for sure. I got pretty lucky. One of the only times 1.3 million was something I played and was still like just another attack, like just another part of the flow. But Confused is a great silver bullet, especially like turn 2 Oswi. It can really buy you a turn. I like it a lot against the Recipro Acceleration Kicks lineup. If you remove the kick from it, then it's not a kick that they can discard from their card pool. Or, even better, you can... And see, I get worried about it... excuse me. I get worried about it getting stunned out by those attack lineups or it getting erased when I played against Eraserhead with the acceleration kicks. So a lot of times I will just remove kick early. I'll just remove kick from a card like Recipro Extend, and it was probably a little confusing, but it's because of the sequencing where I don't think, even though they're going to have to play the enhance that you can discard kicks from the card pool first, that doesn't have to be there first enhance. They might just enhance with erase first, right? So I didn't want to wait for the acceleration kick. I wanted to get rid of kick on their first kick attack to lock it in the card pool. If you can just get rid of EX, like you don't think that they don't have an erase for whatever reason, or they're not playing Eraserhead, obviously, like it's probably just not there, then you can wait for it. But Void just has so many ways to like fuck with your shit, to just cancel the enhance anyway. And that's another thing too, like if I use Confused on the first kick and they cancel it, they night watch it, then it's a tell that, you know, they've recognized that this needs to be a kick, and that they, you know it's coming now. You know that you have to wait for the acceleration kick. You have to put your, you know, speed change on that. Most of the time, when I'm getting killed by Eraserheads, I only played one in the event. When I got killed by Eraserhead, they're just sealing encouraging training partner, because that's usually the only way to really deal with it. But sealing, canceling, confused, all that stuff really does work. But just a super good card. I had another one in the sideboard because I figured I'd run into those matchups. Counts as throw hate too. Also removes targets for sound waves. You know, like just if they have one attack, you know, they have like the one card that you know they're gonna tutor up and kill you with. A lot of times, like Home Run Comet and Giro, like the early Giro builds, right? You see that coming from the sound waves late in the string. You can just remove it from the game, and if it resolves for basically no effect other than you can't add this to your hand with sound waves, or you can't add this to your hand with Momo once per turn enhance, that's a solid flip, man. You know, that's just a solid E flip. So this card does have a lot of application. Most are incredibly niche, which is why it stays as a one of. Wealthy Aspirations, also a one of. It's unique, but it does block low. I love the enhance remove to jolt twice, but it is mostly there for the flip. I didn't get to do any cool tricks with it. I don't even know if flipping it to add a momentum mattered. One time, I think. You know, there's a lot of times where I'm sitting there and I'm like, it really doesn't matter what I do as long as I save some momentum for sound waves. You know, sending a face-up meteor shower to the remove from game pile and a face-up jolt was just the reality of life. You know, the greed monster in me was upset. All the lost value left on the table from a face-up electric jolt, but those are good problems to have if you're actually pushing for game, if you're actually playing the deck correctly. It's just a good problem to have. I mean, half the time I'm once per gaming, they're already stunned out from trying to stop me from once per gaming, you know, or putting them down low enough where it matters. So next, like just not a whole lot really actually doing it for this deck. I could see myself cutting this, honestly. I should mention that. I could easily see myself cutting Wealthy Aspirations and just adding in a fourth Observant Student. Observant Student is one of the only cards I felt like adding more of to this deck after the build. And now that I'm going over it with you guys, I really think I would do that. Maybe side a Wealthy in for like a super late game kind of a thing where a double jolt really matters, or like I really need to be able to tutor up all 4 meteor showers. But I don't know. This deck just isn't. It's not that momentum hungry, right? It's really got a couple of things that really use momentum, and a lot of times I was throwing momentum away to powerful 2 just because I knew I wasn't going to use it, and if I didn't win now, it wasn't going to matter later. 3 copies of Encouraging Training Partner. This is my speed control. It plays both sides of the board. No Specialist of Sound, because while I did care about seeing the top card of my deck a lot, it really mattered when and how I did it. Seeing the top card of my deck when I don't have a way to move it, obviously, you know, I don't have a Destined or a way to draw it or discard it or whatever, you know, kind of frustrating anyhow. So I didn't really value that too much. The +3 low block seems nearly fucking useless in a format where a guy is going to make you, you know, tap 4 foundations and then stun you 2 more, right? Like, just not that interested in having a purely defensive card, like a purely defensive responsibility. I had them cited, the Specialist of Sound, but Encouraging Training Partner was really doing it. Like, realistically, like blocking more than 3 times was never on the table. I think I did it exactly 3 times, and like both times against Jiro, playing more than her hand size and attacks at me while ignoring progressive difficulty. So Encouraging Training Partner was definitely my speed control of choice, just because our limited 2 diff doesn't let us play like just a strictly defensive ability like that. Also, the choice win to specialist can be very tough, and I see encouraging as an easier card to use, if that makes sense. Making the decision before your opponent uses cards from hand can be kind of matchup dependent. So there's that. Encouraging training partner also, very, very importantly, nerfs Grape Rush attack. If they do funky speed shit to it, you can flip this to prevent it from becoming a throw. So that was definitely something on my mind. I did think it was kind of cute to be like, oh, encouraging training partner technically counts as throw hate against Grape Rush. Not the hardest thing for them to play around, right? Like if they just have 2 surviving the final, they're just good. But it is something that came up in my playtesting against Mineta 2. Solid card. Can't hate on it. Latent skill, playing a 3 of this was kind of weird to me at first. It doesn't seem like intrinsic value, but I have run into this issue with a deck that I like to play in standard UVS, which is a deck that tutors things from its discard pile. It specifically needs cards in the discard pile to make the win condition work, right? So having a looting style effect is probably the most common way to get there in a card game, right? Like probably the most famous way to get there in a card game. Maybe not the most famous, but it is definitely one of the earliest to just sort of, you filter new cards that you want into your hand while also getting rid of the cards that you don't want. And I got to play so many assets because I had a high latent skill count. After turn 1 builds, this became a +2 high block almost exclusively. Don't get me wrong, like having 2 of this card out, not super great, especially if you didn't build it turn 1, which would have pretty much required me to play it on a 5. I think I did on a 6 once, going second kind of a thing. I know in like the very first round I played, which would have been round 2, like one of the, I think it was the first game, but it might have been the second game, but one of the first 2 games I played, I, did my foundations like 2, 2, 2, 4, 1 diff on a 4, and then latent skill on a 6, and I hit the 6, and my opponent's like, wow, okay, like, fuck me. He hit it, went first, built them all, and so that was a good way to start the day. But the latent skill's most important thing is that it puts 6 checks in your discard pile. I don't want to have these fucking cards in my hand when I'm killing you. When I'm flipping latent skill, like, I'm throwing these away pretty much to try and find some gas. And latent skill, a lot of the time, I would wait to use with Observant Student. I would try to do it, like, on my second attack. It was always funny to do it during a double jab pummel because the opponents kind of look at it like, well, I mean, he did just discard and draw, so this could be too much, too many cards seen, so... Yeah, this card was really important to my success. I ripped a lot of random bullshit off the top of my deck and absolutely killed it because of it. There's not much skill involved when you throw away an asset and a foundation and you rip 2 double jab pummels. It happened more than once. I think it only happened twice, but it happened more than once. I definitely ripped a blind sound waves off with it to win a game. Definitely ripped some meteor showers off of it. The deck is very small. I should mention that 54 is really small for me. I've got the 54 cards here, 20 attacks, 26 foundations, 5 assets, and 2 actions, and 1 character. So I thought it was really, really cool I had every card type in here. I thought it was really, really cool that Denki has a specific synergy with pretty much every card type in here. Shock treatment being like his thing, and requesting assistance really just kind of fitting his mold. Even wealthy, too. But plus Ultra plays really well with him because you can have a momentum plus Ultra something, double the speed a lot of the time. They can't afford to block it. They can't possibly block it. It's probably still only for like 5 damage, but I like to do it on Electric Jolt. If I have a momentum, I'm for sure sending a 3 mid 8 jolt at you. I'm sending a fucking pillar swing at you because guess what? Even if you block this, it's going to momentum, and so is all the other cards in my card pool. I kind of had this little epiphany about doing that with about being able to do 2+ ultras in the same turn, and so that went up to a 2 just because it is one of the better momentum dumps, and the style of defense I'm playing is very gates are open, come on in. The style of defense I'm playing is not strictly like, well, if you get me, you get me, but it is very much like you get to take your best shot. You get to absolutely take your biggest fucking swing at me with your deck, and it better be good. It better be the home runnest of home run comments. It better have the fucking stats on it. And I survived a surprisingly long time against the Staff Strike Jiro deck just from drawing 2+ ultras, and it's like all really fast mids and a really fast, really high damage mid. And I definitely could have played it better to live one more attack, I think, but Jose showed me all D's that he still had in his hand that he could pass, so he's like, well, if you had not blocked something, I'd be staff striking again instead of just playing the gravity capture net that kills you. So but anyway, plus ultra was like the kind of low investment opportunity cost defensive piece that really helped the deck. I got to play assets, right? Like I'm calling this assets Denki almost because they are that important. And then I got to play the character, like you got the 2 basic card types, actions, assets, the 2 A's. And then I got to also play the character, the specific synergy of Denki having Electric Jolt to always deal damage. A specific synergy where you need to not get Omni blocked, and to get your once per game off. And Jiro again, Earphone Jack again, like having specific synergy with Electric Jolt because it will always get to ready the card off, but also needing the +1 speed on all my charge attacks, which, spoiler, they're all charge. That stuff seemed really cool. But then Jiro also has the specific synergy where she obviously runs a lot of the same stuff, but there's supposed to be like a couple in the show, so I thought it was funny. It was like Punk Rock Girlfriend Save Me when I blocked with the Jiro and stuff like that. So I probably picked the character more for the memes. If I was really thinking about it, Toru might have been the answer. I haven't had a lot of success when I side into Toru because it does everything I want it to do defensively, right? Like I never die to the big stupid donkey bullshit lineups. I get to turn 3. Toru gets me to turn 3, but I never really hit my opponent for meaningful damage. So as a sideboard option, it was something I would have had to work on, right? It's something I would have had to develop authentically. But this was just an easy side. And I'll talk about the character right now, I guess, just because Arrogant Disposition was my 6 check, right? It's I need it for sound waves to put on top of my deck. I need to be able to force a 6. There's no reason not to have 6 checks in your deck with sound waves. If you had no other 6s, you'd play characters just to put it on top. And I was thinking about it. I don't like to build Arrogant Disposition. I only have 1 card that gets it out of my stage. So if I build it, and I told my opponents this when it happened, it only really came true for Jose because I actually passed him, and usually I fail him on 4s and 5s a lot. But I'm okay with that because if it's in my stage, I can't tutor it with sound waves, which means I usually fucking lose. That's just, something I got paranoid about a lot. If I didn't have a 6 check in my discard pile, it wasn't that big of a deal. But if I specifically had them in my stage, it seemed like some kind of curse. I definitely played a game where I was like, man, if I had a 6 check, I could just win right now with no risk. And I raw drew off a sound waves because of that, and I drew a 6 off the top, and I was so pissed. And it was an Arrogant Disposition. So when I realized I wanted really one more 6 check, but I really didn't care for another low block or the effect on it or the fact that I would get baited into playing it on a 5 because statistically you should still build the foundation turn 1, I think. I just don't see the reason not to most of the time, even unless, like, if it was an attack that I needed to be in my discard pile versus building, like, I wouldn't. But anyway, this needs to be in your discard pile, you know. Latent skill puts it there. Latent skill puts your 6 checks into your discard pile. Unwavering /2. Those are the arrogant dispositions. The first card I would discard pretty much all the time, especially if I wasn't worried about the low or needed the low block. So if I had sound waves and a discard outlet, this sumbitch is ending up in the discard pile. Shock treatment is a one of because it's unique. It's still, I used it very defensively. It's very much an E-destroy, commit 1 defense thing. Having a bunch of momentum to spend on it offensively didn't really happen. When it does happen, it is for sure a beating. But defensively, this is... My apologies. Defensively, this is, a shining star for getting to turn 2. Like, when you go second and you just want to see turn 2, I don't think it'll get you to turn 3 too often, but it was really good for that, except for, of course, when I face against decks doing all the same things I did, which is readying foundations. Like, having a shock treatment into an unwavering / doesn't feel great at all. I can just tell you that. But it's super important to be there. It helps out the whole kit. It works. It just works. Not a bad block. Observant Student. I like to look at the top card of my deck. Playing this deck was very safe. Playing this deck was very risk averse. I'm usually someone who either likes to take 0 risk or take tons of risk and just high roll people. And I wanted this deck to look like a high roll deck, but in reality, I'm doing everything I can to mitigate my luck. I'm doing everything I feel like I can. I guess I could run the 4 of Observant, which I probably will soon. But destined for checking good and Observant Student to see that we're just massive. If I had other attacks in hand especially, I would almost never draw the card first with Unwavering. There was so many games where I would look at the top card and then, see it's a 5 check or whatever, and then go, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, draw the card Unwavering, act like I'm upset, but I did it on purpose. 100%, I really need to see my checks. I cannot afford to overextend in this format. Turn 2 defense, we're really only playing defense for 1 turn in this deck. And so something that's really important about doing that is making sure that you're really not tapping unnecessary resources. You're not losing 1 full block from your hand just for free, essentially. So this stopped me from going super crazy, super ham. This stopped me from making aggro mistakes. This gave me a better pivot plan, and it gave me a deadlock ability, and it gave me something that blocks 1.3 million. So it's not like the star of the show. It's not the best foundation. Obviously, Destin is just a little bit better because it can actually get rid of the card on top. If we're just talking about the effects, of course, the stats are a little different. But these two were like the absolute cheatingest fucking thing I did all weekend. Just constantly looking at the top card of my deck, constantly knowing what I'm going to check, constantly being able to take 0 risk, being able to actually assess things to the point where there is no risk, there is no resource being committed, there is no loss of efficiency, and combining that with all the card drawn ways to get cards off the top of my deck and all the cards at ready foundations, I really think this deck is super strong. I think if I can shore up the self-sacrifice matchups, the damage reduction matchups, I think it's got a real shot going forward. On top of that, to help out that Grease is Amphibious. A lot of these cards are 3Xs. I really want to keep the deck small. I really wanted to play 4 Amphibious, but it's so typically only active for 1 turn. A really, really important one, really, really powerful during that turn, but it clearly loses efficiency without other ways to clear my card pool. The cards that are leaving my card pool are almost always from the once per game My opponents did help me out once or twice. I had a villains defeated that actually maybe bit my opponent in the behind once they saw the amphibious activations and the other things I got. Ricochet charge was like 50-50 on getting blocked, so sometimes it activated it, sometimes it didn't. That card's mostly there for the stun too. So not being able to use amphibious defensively almost at all, not very reliably. Probably get sighted out a lot when I go to Jiro. Like that was something I kept in my mind was she can't activate amphibious. She's got exactly one way to make amphibious work. So that has to come out for training with Gunhead, which I also played no throw decks, but it was going to be more alive than amphibious most of the time. Destined is cheating. This is a cheater's card. This is a fucking cheaty ass cheat card because you just name attack and it's like, wow, my turn was going to be fucking over, but now I kill your ass. I never went fishing for attacks with this. I used it to get a poke turn in. I used it just to play another attack on a 5 when I had no chance of killing the opponent, but it was for another attack that I already had. The times when I hit off of it, I was suffering from success. I remember so many draw 2, discard 2 triggers where I'm just discarding 2 attacks because my hand has been filled up from sculpting off, turn 1 build, never ever reviewing attacks, which sounds so greedy in retrospect, but really looking at it and going, I don't really want to build 4 or 5 again. I want to hold these attacks and I'm fine with blocking with them, but like, I don't want to go fishing for them later. I don't want to go find them, just to get a better build out because the OTK is still very possible. So this card it got me out of jams I wasn't in yet. Like, I cannot stress how good this deck is for this flow. It fits my playstyle. It feels like it brings your basement up really high. Like the basement for your luck, how bad you can actually check throughout turns with it in the stage just feels like it is warped so much in your favor and is only balanced by the fact that you probably have to make 4 or 5 more control checks after that one to successfully put people away. So I'm getting a little rambly here. I apologize for you, but I love this card a lot. I love the power of it, and it really made the deck work. It's the kind of thing where if they banned it, I don't think I play this version or like Denki or a lot of like no aggro air deck for sure. Like aggro air just goes out the window realistically, unless you're Froppy, like unless there's like some way you can just compensate even harder. But this avoided the jam. This got me out of the jam before I was ever in a jam. And again, you rip the attack off the top, and if you make sure you've already got a good hand, a good chance going in, it's just a rich gets richer kind of thing. I loved revealing attacks off the top, adding them to my hand, and then never actually playing them. The opponent's waiting for it, and it just, the more attacks you play, the smaller your hand gets, and they know that one of those is the attack they saw. They're just like, they can tell how bad it's getting, right? They can tell exactly how much danger they're in, that wasn't the attack you needed. So it just, and playing around it as if it's going to be the next one, just such a solid one diff, like maybe too solid. We already talked about Arrogant Disposition. It's just a 6 check. 1 copy of Release, insanely powerful defensively, but I cannot afford to lose my stage just to stay alive. I'm not going to put cards in my deck to I'm not going to put the cards in my deck that make it really good defensively, but also makes it nearly impossible to play that safe offense I was just talking about. So the 4 check really kind of kills it for me. The 4 check means it's got to be here. I don't blame other people for running more of it, especially if you're siding. I originally had more in my sideboard. But the thing is that not only is it like, I really would rather die than lose my staging area, and I'll tell you why. It's it's the kind of thing where Release can put me into a bad situation. Release can can get me out of playing the way the deck is really meant to be played. If I'm in a situation where I am releasing a lot, I can't afford to lose my whole stage, and I'm now letting my opponent pivot. Like if I don't learn to defend without the release, and like Destin works so good on defense, right? Like it's how do I you go into it. If you have the releases in your deck and you build them, you get this sort of safety and sensibility that you can use them, and then your opponent's playing around them, and that seems great. But like if you don't have the release, you never have the potential to put yourself in a situation to lose more tempo than you had to, or lose more of like the resource war than you had to. So it's like the kind of thing where the games where I was using multiple release, I was actually giving them up to I was actually losing them based on like a lukewarm attack turn, right? Like it didn't work out, and checking random fours fucks up the math of the deck so bad. It's the single 4 check in the deck. We're already playing around 2, so it's not that bad, but like the amount of you have to play like 6 or 7 attacks in this deck to really threaten lethal. A lot of times I played a full-on 7 attacks in a turn just from being able to filter and draw and tutor so much that again, I told you guys I didn't really review attacks, and it sounds mega greedy, but a lot of times my attacks in my hand would be like +1 mid block, electric jolt for a poke, and then a low block, like a 5 diff low block or something, and I'm playing against a nasty low block deck, usually indiscriminate 1.3 in theirs as well. So when being able to operate on so few foundations, and also knowing that I really need to block for only 1 turn, and that's where my opening comes from, because people do feel the pressure from Denki. I do think it's hard to wall him out. I think that's really where Eraser has ran into issue, is that he forces them to make a lot of decisions based around decisions I'm going to make. They really want to block everything, and he really makes it easy to do that, or to punish that. So, just when it comes to release, I wanted to learn how to defend around it, and I just didn't want to check a 4, at the end of the day. Requesting assistance, the one thing I have to say about this card, commit it, ready it later. I had to learn that lesson very harshly. I lost a lot of games because I ran out of stuff to ready. Excuse me. And it was because I was going to ready the other foundation with requesting assistance, right? And it's easy to say that when you're just basing around like, I have no momentum now, I will later, like depending on the how guaranteed your once per game is in the current card pool, like the current decks being played. But so I learned that like a lot of times I would commit this early and then end up playing something and having to respond with like earphone jack, and it's like the best target to commit now and ready later. It allows you to play a little bit of a bluffing game where like if they don't see the ability to ready a foundation in your stage and you commit requesting while you have no momentum, like they might not think you're going to go super, super deep on them based on your 3 foundations. But when that second card is an unwavering slash that readies requesting assistance, so it can now ready a different card, yada, yada, you get a lot of mileage out of it. So naturally, I would commit like Amphibious first and not ready it with other effects because it can ready itself, or you immediately ready it like as soon as you could, stuff like that. But a lot of the times the correct play is to commit requesting assistance and Amphibious if you have other foundation readying effects, just because of the sequencing of it all. So if you guys hear a cat screaming, he's at my door, but at the beginning of the stream, he was laying on my keyboard and slapping the mouse with his tail and messing up all my settings. So I love my cat. I wish he was here, but he's being kind of a nuisance. I'll get him on the stream for you guys one day. But I tried to point the camera at him and he got upset, so he's not having it. But I'm gonna go hang out with him as soon as I'm done here. So requesting assistance, it's got to be there. It's a staple, but try to make it a target for your other readying effects. It's really easy when you have multiple out, right? Like you can do the chain, like commit your requestings, and as long as you have one to start readying things, you can go back to it. So just don't fall for the typical trap of I'll commit something else because requesting readies it, but then you're going to end up drawing or playing a card that would have readied it anyway and stuff like that. So that was not a tough lesson to learn, but that was like an epiphany for me. It was like a small little thing where you're just like, okay, I'm going to commit and ready way more than I thought. And like this, I'm going to ready twice, once with earphone jack, or unwavering slash, and then through its own effect. And I had like a cute little way I would like separate my foundations with like an asset between them for cards that haven't been readied on the left and like cards that have been readied on the right. But I always made sure to communicate with my opponent about amphibious. I always made sure to tell them I'm readying this, but not with its own effect. And then I would move it to like the foundations that have been readied and go, but I have not once perturned with this yet. It was something I was afraid was going to get like a judge call for me on the weekend, with someone going, oh, well, he's already readied this. And especially if it's amphibious, it's as a judge, it could be very likely. And I have no clue what a judge's philosophy on that would really be, but, hopefully they can tell who's lying, I guess. Or again, if the player's not lying, if the player's not cheating, if they're just confused because it has been readied before and so much card movement has happened. But yeah, just commit the requesting assistance. Jiro's in here. She's like the side, she's not actually in the side, but she's like the sideboard character for Eraserhead. I did side her when I was going second against some pretty aggressive decks, like decks that I know didn't really want to see turns 3, 4, or 5, but it's not really a Jiro deck, and without any real defense to side in, because I didn't play any throw decks, so these didn't come up. The Confused only came up in a couple matchups, and the Ultra Compressed Weights, I did play a lot of Ochakos, so I didn't see it all the time, but when I did, that was super cool. And I did side in with Jiro a lot, but she was like my going second character. I like her a lot in the fourth kind matchup, didn't play one of those. Specifically because she piles on damage, but also because checking a 3 is the easiest way to lose to a 1.3 million, and I really wanted to at least know in advance so I can just scoop and not play it out and check the 3 and feel bad, but also to rearrange it, because there's so many times where a 4-speed 1.3 million doesn't kill me if I just check a 5. So again, we're looking at the top card of our deck a lot, so bringing Jiro into the fold just made a lot of sense. Playing a lot of her cards. I talked a lot about the double plus ultra turns and how it's like our one defensive trick already. The stadium, I don't know if this is as self-explanatory as it should be, but I'll say this. I talked to Travis and Tamron Cardwell during the event at some point. He was looking at his deck, and Tam said something like no green cards or something, and he wasn't trying to give out info because I'm pretty sure he knew I was looking at the deck and Travis wouldn't care or whatever, but at least Tam had the fucking decency to like code it. At least he had the decency to think not to just say, hey, you're not playing Sports Festival Stadium. So, good on him. But Travis had talked about it where he never wanted to play it as a form either. And, I thought I don't ever want to play this as a form came from the fact that I have Unwavering Slash, and, it just seemed natural to go, oh, I can just tutor this. But, he wasn't willing to do it ever at all. So without the option to bring it from your discard pile, it is kind of risky. You are giving your opponent essentially one turn of +1 damage, So I only begrudgingly built this turn 1, one game, It was, like the kind of thing where you absolutely have no other choice, and I was going first, so it felt okay. Um, but the response commit, obviously the really big part of it, protecting your jolts from Faith Shield, protecting your turn from being fucked on by breaker, being able to pitch the first breaker, then play an unwavering, and pitch the second breaker tilted a lot of motherfucking people playing naval laser beam and frog lashing. A lot of people got their frog lashing discarded by me, and then played another unwavering and built another stadium, and then they later on in the turn blocked with a naval laser beam, which is just now a vanilla partial on whatever they were blocking and stuff. So yeah, it's super super good. And I have to mention that just like how Latent Skill gets cards we want into our discard pile, we can just throw away assets. Like, I don't ever want a hard build Sports Festival. There's 3 in the deck, though. That's, up there with pretty much all the important cards. There's 4 of, 4 other cards, right? So I'm drawing these a lot, and being able to throw them away with zero stress, knowing that I basically would prefer to have any other fucking card in my hand other than maybe Arrogant Disposition, made it really easy to play the deck. Being able to fish them out. And there's actually a lot of stuff coming out of the discard pile in this deck. And I didn't realize how weak I really would be to Drowning and Resentment, and how relative that could be with the once per game to kind of clear that card anyway. So definitely interesting that there's so much tutoring on the air symbol, and it all just kind of costs 1 momentum to get there most of the time. The card draw, a lot of times, if I had no other way to draw a card off the top of my deck or move it, with a Destined for Mainstream, I peaked with Observant and I have no other way to move it. Sports Festival did fill that role, right? It is another card that can do that. And one of my favorite mini games of the weekend would be looking at the top card of my deck, seeing that it's something I want to draw during a double jab pummel, and doing everything I could to get somebody to block this double jab pummel without, revealing that. And Sports Festival Stadium kind of gives you that same mind game on every attack. There's definitely a game where I looked at a 2-check on top of my deck, and I went, if this guy blocks this, I win. Then he didn't block it, and I told him, wow, bud, fucking play of the game. Fucking greatest 5 damage he ever took in his life, because I played a 1 diff or 2 diff, whatever, after it, and I had the fucking gas. And, the only card that could have moved it was Sports Festival. I'd probably already bing-bonged off 2 attacks, with Destined already. So, Sports Festival just, the one really sucky thing is when I would have a 5 on top of my deck and they end up hitting me with the breaker or the Faith Shield. And so that kind of sucks to give them that info. But a lot of times just drawing the card to get around the defensive response is still worth it, right? It's still worth it. I still can check a 5. Still most likely to check a 5. So just don't underestimate combining this with Observant Student and playing mind games. Earphone Jack gives all my attacks 1 speed and ready stuff. That's the name of the game. The entire format is find a way to not actually deal with progressive difficulty, whether it's ignoring progressive, clearing the card pool, bonuses to checks, whatever. You have to not have progressive difficulty affect the amount of cards you can play, and you need to ready the foundations because no one's going to check perfect anyway. On top of that, having Earphone Jack and Sports Festival Stadium is like having a Summon Dark Shadow in your stage, except Sports Festival is +2 damage on a partial block. If they block a 5 damage attack, if they partial block a 5 damage attack, they take 3. And then if you have Stadium out, they lose an additional 1. So, it's pretty much never worth it to block a 5 damage attack, partial block a 5 damage attack with Stadium out. Pretty rare for it to be worth it to, block a 7 for half and take 5, right? So, the little math that works out is really, really important, and being able to double up and buy the assets, just destroying the old one was a play that I made pretty often. If I had to ready more stuff, build the second earphone jack, destroy the committed one. If I'm afraid that you're baiting me with your first fancy block, that's fine. We got another one. Unwavering slash, making the assets work, having the card draw, being a fake 4-diff. This does everything the deck really wants to do, and it even has a great momentum outlet. I sent a lot of 8 damage unwavering slashes because if they block this, I get to tap down release, which means I win. If they take the 8 damage, then I'm pretty much winning anyway. Like I said, there's not a lot of great momentum uses in this deck. It is one of the only momentum dumps, along with EX2 on Electric Jolt. So, just a fucking insane card now that we have the asset targets for it. They're really going to have to look at the assets that they put with this card going forward, because you cannot shut this turn down. You just can't. You cannot fuck with Dinky's turn when he's got stadium and a slash. If he's got access to 2 stadiums, basically, there's just, I can play around learning the standard. I can play around so many things, with this out. So just really, really hard to play defense. It's like in set 1, we talked about Breaker is the best defensive ability. If you want to play defense, you have to have Breaker. Every deck should have. It's the only hand trap, and now this card just deals with it. So they didn't add a ton of Breaker in set 2, and now that we have a very, very consistent, very low risk, cantrip attack that readies a foundation, it sucks. It just sucks, especially since this is a mid anyway, and you'd love to mid block it, right? It just absolutely sucks ass that your opponent just gets to draw a card because you're trying to play the fucking game, and you concede the response. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be interactions with it. It's just weird symbol choices, and it's just really, really, really strong. Just felt really untouchable when it was my turn. Indiscriminate shock. This is not the win condition. Everybody is ready for this. It's only 3 speed. If I can't put speed on it, I just don't want to play it. I added this to my hand. I'd put indiscriminate, and a 6 on top with sound waves. I got 3 other attacks in my hand. I just need my opponent to get baited, to be waiting for this one. Won a ton of games when my opponent has a low block in hand, 2 lows. Won a ton of games. The one game where I had to play these to win was Kirishima 2-dot. Had to play 9 fucking attacks. The +4 damage from his 4 tapped foundations wasn't super relevant. I think he still blocked, the first one anyway, after blocking so many other things and being totally tapped out and all this other stuff. So this card needs to be here so that they hold the low blocks and die to everything else. It's the only low. It's the only low in the deck. And because, if I run my mouth enough and people play it this way enough, then they'll start leaving themselves open to the 1.3. It is necessary for your late game. It is necessary for anything past turn 3. You will probably have to find a way to force it to win the game. But if I was playing it, it was just because it was there to combo a double jab after it a lot. I didn't feel bad opening with this, just to get the stun in. I almost never use the enhanced commit 1 foundation, your rival commits 1, because I was always drawing so much gas and readying so many foundations that I knew I could just play more cards. And that's why indiscriminate never came up. It's too high difficulty. And I want to talk about this with right now with the 5 diffs. I did not play 0 gravity lift strictly because it's a 5 difficulty attack. It fights with my stadium, right? It fights with my sports festival. It's not a safe poke, it's not a safe starter attack. I always wanted to start with a 4 diff. I always, always, always wanted to start with a 4 difficulty attack just for the sake of if I check poorly, like if I just check poorly, like to open up, I can wait, yeah, it doesn't do anything on the turns played. I'd have to once per game around it. There was just so many times where I'm like, okay, I guess if I just play it on a 7, hopefully I have the +2 from the jab, and then I'll have the stadium to protect it, or like I'd have to play Unwavering Slash to get the stadium first, and then I'd have to play Gravity Lift on a 6 a lot. And I'm talking like I had 1 Gravity Lift at one point, and it was just I was playing Gravity Lift as often as I was playing Indiscriminate, which I had started to learn was never going to kill anybody, was never going to affect anybody, especially like turns 3 and 4, not until it's way, way late game where I can absolutely exhaust, their ability to block, a 3-speed attack. So, yeah, 0 grav, just there wasn't room for 5 diffs. That's really it. There wasn't room for any more 5 diffs. I'm already having one that's just for a zone mix-up. I'm only playing 3 ofs for a lot of the important cards. The most important are 4s, but 3 ofs just to get some variety going, because variety is very important in this game. You can't just jamming for the same cards means your opponent can read those plays easier. So a lot of value can be had by having a varied attack lineup. You want to be a little surprising. It just makes sense. So 0 grav as a 1 of didn't feel good. 0 grav as a 4 of, as a 2 of, a 3 of. None of the numbers I tried it at, I ever found myself playing it. It was just very hard to... I didn't want to open it. If you watch my opponent's stream match, my opponent had like the shittiest possible luck, but my attack turns start with 4 diffs and end with 4 diffs, and it feels great. I played Unwavering on a 6 a lot of the time. I'd play it as like the first card into my pool after I once per game a lot of the time. But the sheer it's all about the volume, and it's about the fact that not only are these attacks unappealing to block, like in the same way that Recipro Extend is, the same way that High Engine Kick can be, just like what kind of resource would you actually have to devote to blocking that? It's probably only 6 damage. Just all the really annoying, innocuous attack lineups. This one comes with the added benefit of nuking your best foundation. I guess not nuking, that sounds like removing, but, committing your best foundation for wanting to fuck with these cards. So none of these are really good to block. Meteor Shower also does nothing the turn you play it, just like Gravity Lift, but it's a 4 diff. It's a 4 diff, and it becomes a second 4 diff. It turns any card in my hand into a 4 diff after the once per game. So like Gravity Lift and then adding it with the once per game and then removing it to add something else almost never really helped, like getting rid of that progressive and putting that momentum back. That's for like a crazy pop off early game. That's like for a crazy, exhaust all your board resources kind of a thing. And, I was trying not to do that. I was trying not to kind of go crazy with that. So yeah, Indiscriminate, like 0 Gravity Lift, just too many 5 difficulties. I think there's another one, Long Lasting Explosion. I love that in testing. I love sending 7 damage jolts at people that they have to block and lose a card, and I still once per game. I love that shit. But 5 difficulty just made it awkward. 5 difficulty drawing it to other places made it awkward. That's just the truth of it. I needed 4 diffs all the way. Double Jab Pummel was actually kind of a late addition, and I saw that's really when the 4 diff thing and this kind of really started to come together, is when I noticed that people don't really like to block the first 1 or 2. They like to wait for something that they think you're really going to once per game on, right? They want to wait for something just before yeah, they want to block the thing right before the jolt, or they want to block all this stuff after, then you once per game. And this let me play the jolt to once per game off of very easy. It strings together crazy turns I had after everything was tapped on my turn, and I was like, well, I gotta just check fives, and only because this card's giving +2 did I get there. But the biggest thing is, like, I would play this on a 6 a lot, and my opponent's like, well, I can't block the first meteor because it could just be a random poke, right? And they're not going to once per game off that one. And then they don't want to block the second, the unwavering slash, because it's just for 4. It's like 5 now with Sports Vessel, but lose your best foundation over a 4 mid 4. Again, if it's like a 5/5, like sick, right? Like it's a 5 diff 5/5. That's annoying to deal with. But then it's double jab pummel, and you're like, wow, this is a once per game opportunity and can't fail the next check if I don't block this. But if I block this, I lose my best foundation and they loot. They loot twice, basically, right? Like, I think, no, Faithless Looting is 2 cards. Anyway, so this and Ricochet Charge were the ones where, like, I could really read my opponent, see what they value, see what they really care about, and also really helped me get the extension, that I needed a couple times in early rounds. Like, I think people were surprised that I'm, like, going 5 attacks deep before once per gaming, but sometimes that's what you have to do, and double jab pummel will get you there. Did not face a single person in deadlock the whole tournament. I think one guy got up to 10 with can't be fixed after I committed something, but I think it was a Kirishima player, and then it just never came back around. So, the deadlock not relevant, but double jab is perfect for man, these attacks suck and I don't want to block them, but I'm starting to have to. Probably just a, classic UR case of being even better than it's advertised. Ricochet Charge, I had a lot of this at first. I love that it procs Amphibious for me. I love that it has Stun 2 for me. I love that it's appealing to block so I can commit your best foundation, but it really sucked to draw 2 of these, especially if people were blocking them, and I could not get a good read on that. I had some people who always take the 4. I have some people who always block it, right? And deciphering the nuances between those, because sometimes they're only blocking it because they're like, well, I'm not blocking anything else. That's not the same, right? Like, that's not the same as blocking it because you don't care that they'll get an extra momentum. So I think this card is almost all upside. It's very rare that I had to have the opponent make the decision I want, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I didn't have to rely on them to give me the Amphibious that I want or the momentum that I want, especially since I almost never wanted the extra momentum. But I do want to tap your best foundation. That's the trade-off to me. It is my progressive difficulty versus your best foundation. Only one can survive. So, it puts people, it's just a great opener. It puts people in such a bad situation so early. I was so happy with every single one that resolved. I was so happy that I didn't draw a second copy with it ever. I could see this going up if, like, the general consensus on whether or not to block this attack becomes more decisive, I guess, like more agreed upon. But right now people make a lot of different decisions around it, so it's hard to plan a turn based on whether or not if you're going to have +1 progressive or not. But just kind of a sick card. Glad they gave it the errata they did. We're getting to the end, I promise. We're almost there, folks. Meteor Shower I talked about a bit earlier. It's just mega good and danky, guys. It's just super good and danky. I don't like it pretty much anywhere else. I still didn't pick it up after I once per gamed a lot, but when I did, I was very happy to, right? Like, there's a lot of times where people were like, well, I'm just going to lose to these Meteor Showers, and so they would, like, straight scoop kind of early when I was planning to do other things. just because I thought it might throw them off. But it turns out it wouldn't have. But the meteor shower staring them in the face gave them so much, gave me so much of a mental edge. I was winning games. I was going to punt. Now, I don't think people made too many great bad decisions, and I don't remember exactly when those were, but I definitely remember a guy showing me, oh, I don't have high blocks for that. And he showed me mid blocks for the 2 jolts I was going to play and only deal 4 damage with instead of, like I thought I could EX one out. He had a plus ultra, but he was looking at the meteor showers and was like, well, I don't have the high. And so got a lot of free real estate. What can I say? I had a Tokoyami player completely brick 7 non-attack cards scooped to me, and I looked at my next 7, and I was like, oh yeah, I got a sound waves. It was over, and I fucking did not. I had shit. I was going to brick right back. But that's card games, man. You take those. But so Meteor Shower, just, man, not... Gravity Lift. I talked to Christopher Bromley about this. We really hate playing Zero Gravity Lift because you're just like, here's a Zero Gravity Lift, pass. Like no enhance. I get to Denki enhance, but it's like I'm gonna do fucking nothing. See you later, right? Like even with the once per game, it's see you later this turn. Meteor Shower, the hole doesn't do anything the turn it's played. That's how I felt. It did feel kind of good as a poke, but the +3 block, kind of makes it always a poke usually. Like, you're really kind of tempting, like, hey, you want to let me put this in momentum? People will freak out about that, and you'll get some real estate from it. But just kind of solid, The fact that it's 5 damage matters with Sports Festival too. That definitely helped. I think I had a 4 damage attack in that slot. I think it was more ricochets. And just being able to accept that this card is solid as fuck and goes great with the once per game just worked out. When I sided Jiro, I took all 4 Meteor Showers out. I went usually down to 18 attacks with Home Run Comment, but there was a couple games where I went down to like 14 attacks and still just checked them all that one game. It just really did not feel great. First Impressions isn't bad on a 0 grav and sets up 1 Meteor Shower to be 3 attacks. I remember trying First Impressions early on. It didn't give me the block status that I really wanted. It didn't give me that sort of thing. And the 2 diff slots are so tight. I thought First Impressions was going to be sick as fuck in Denki because I'd be flipping it and getting to fish out a block early and getting the targeted committal that I really wanted. And, it definitely did not. Again, it was the kind of thing where now I need my opponent to kind of cooperate exactly how I want. And it didn't really get there for me. Kind of like it's long lasting again, right? Like it's the same kind of outcomes with long lasting where that one was kind of high difficulty. This one's kind of high difficulty too because I can't play that many 2 diffs. My difficulty curve will be too high. So in 0 grav also ate space with my Sports Festival, right? Where like I need to save Sports Festival for the jolt later to once per game. But then also it was really appealing to do it early on. Like it just, sports having to decide, okay, do I keep my 0 gravities damage here or do I save it for the once per game or, just a lot of different stuff happening. It's not bad at all. It's just for my play style, for my, for the way this is set up, like this isn't like a big bang Denki. Like 0 grav is great for a big bang Denki because you can just like you can really just kind of cheat your difficulty super early as you go. And my deck did have them. My deck looked a lot like Jose's list going into playtesting before I found out I could get the stadiums, before I was like, oh, and wavering means I never have to build it. 0 grav goes fucking fantastic with Sports Festival though. Do not get me wrong. Like I'll say this. There was a point where I wish I had sided 0 gravs with Jiro. Zero, like just playing a zero grav as your first attack with Stadium out in Jiro is a 7 damage throw that they cannot Faith Shield, and if they do block it, they take 5. You know, so it's almost like having a 9 damage throw in her. So I do wish I had had that option at one point, I remember thinking. And with the double plus ultra, like zero gravity lift, the throw sounded like a fucking slam dunk early on. I was like, hell yeah, that's the most reliable thing to put the damage on. And we do have the asset to protect it. And, you know, just in testing, I loved going so much deeper. I loved having, you know, the really long strings. And I liked not having to guess if my opponent is going to have another special block, or, you know, if I get rid of a Faith Shield, but then the next attack gets breakered, and a lot of times I just was letting the Faith Shield through anyway, and then it became the difficulty issue. But yeah, I was so many times I'm like, I really want to play the zero grav because I want to once per game put in my momentum, but it didn't fit as the first attack. And it didn't fit as the second attack. And by the time I got to the third attack, it was like, this is going to be a ridiculous difficulty. Not super fast. Still going to have like the same issues to play around. But, you know, I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad that I got to the point that I did with the deck. I try to circumvent my shit luck a lot. Charged up and specialized to help grab what I need. Yeah, definitely Big Bang Denki, 6-8 attack turn 3 blitz indiscriminate. Yeah, it's super interesting. It's just a completely different deck than mine, and I think your deck, you know, people playing your deck helped me a lot, right? Like people playing charged ups and indiscriminate shock and blitz rush and gravity lift. Like I don't think people were ready to just get fucking slammed by meteor showers and jab pummels all day. You know, I don't think people were expecting like to just be facing primarily 4 diffs coming at them. I think they were looking for a big explosive 5 difficulty, and I love to get the gravity lift train rolling when you gravity lift a gravity lift to gravity lift something else. Like I love all that stuff, but I didn't play charged up because I could never afford to lose foundations. It was just never worth it to lose a whole foundation. Even if I was going to tutor something up with sound waves, like the math just never, ever, ever worked out. I had charged up when I had small limbers, but the 4 checks were too much. There was just so many things where I felt like, yes, this is good, but is it really necessary or helping me, right? Like there was just so many times where these things were not helping me, and because it wasn't that the deck wouldn't win with them, it's that the deck didn't need specifically that at that time. And so I created the original back at the PPG 1K in January. Oh, Redmond got the idea for his win from me because I can't keep my mouth shut. Okay, so this is like the original thread. Yeah, I know he had the blitz rushes, and I know my list looked a lot like that in set 1. You know, you had to play that in set 1. You could not do the scummy all 4 diffs ricochet charge bullshit, right? Like double jab makes this work 1000%. If it wasn't for double jab pummel, I don't even, I have no clue what I would actually be trying to do with the deck, because it made it so easy to make those 2 turns count, right? Like it made it so easy. One thing I want to touch on really quick, the foundation readying is super important, because if we want to think of Denki as taking like an extra turn, if we want to think of him as like his whole thing being once per game you get to take 2 turns on somebody, one of the most important aspects of that second turn when it comes to like a game as prolific as Magic is untapping your foundations. So all of the foundation readying kind of works towards that end. And because of that, double jab pummel and other check bonuses really makes the volume you can put out insane. There's so much filter to this deck. There's so much card draw to this deck everywhere you go. There's, you're not really getting tons of advantage, but it is there now. But most of it's cantripping, most of it's looting, whatever. You dig and you see the stuff in your deck. 54 is higher than I wanted it to be, but I couldn't contain everything, get the variant, or not the variants, but I couldn't get the variety that I really wanted in attacks without going up a couple cards. But the deck needs to be small because it needs to see things in its discard pile. It needs to see assets. It needs to check sixes. It needs to put those in the discard pile for later. The choice to run 4 Jolt is so obvious. I don't think I did anything tricky with this. The only thing that's tricky about this is it's the only thing that guarantees the once per turn because I don't have the gravity lift. That's pretty much it. I did EX for some wins. Definitely killed some people. I don't think I ever killed someone at 2 with a stadium out. I definitely killed someone at 1 with a jolt, though. So that was pretty cool. And then 3 sound waves. 4 felt like overkill. Checking 2s felt bad. I only checked a 2 to fail an attack turn exactly once all weekend. And it was against the Tokoyami player who said, hey, I might brick, and I was like, that's cool, man. I appreciate you being kind, but whatever, but it ain't going to happen. He then showed me his brick and scooped, and, I told that story a minute ago. So that's the only time I ever checked a 2 to get fucked over. I never checked it to build. I could play this deck at another tournament and just fucking check sound waves on my 3rd foundation, my 4th foundation every week and just be pissed. So there is a ton of variance, but I did a lot of testing with this deck and I always respected the 2 check. I use sound waves to put attacks on top of my opponent's deck a fair amount of times. Having double sound waves, made that possible. There's times where opponents have 1 card left in their hand and like a good board still, but I'm like, okay, well, you can't check these 2 cards off the top of your deck, so now you're checking a bad, you're making a bad check. This card came in so clutch when I played against Corey Aguilar playing Eraserhead. He scooped me up game 1, and I sided into Jiro, and it helped so much. That's what it was there for, was for the Eraserhead matchup. And then we got to a point where I had double sound waves available. Like I had like a great poke turn of just jolt, jolt, and then some more build going first. Managed to survive. He wasn't having like super great attack turns, but what Eraserhead does. And, that's the trade-off of getting to erase my fucking character. And if they ever give him a legit offense, I'll be pissed. That's just the truth. So when it came down to it, I was looking at it and I was like, man, he's pretty low. He might be partialing. The stadium is out. We're at the once per gaming stage and stuff like that. And I remember I was like, okay, I can put 2 attacks on top of his deck, but if he erases me and draws cards, he's safe. And I don't give a shit. The problem is that he has to make the read that he won't need the enhance, because I have flash attacks coming. I'm basically like, do I tutor up something that's not a flash attack, where I know it's just going to have absolutely no speed and it's going to be down to his block zone, or I can play the 2 flash attacks out and I have 2 momentum, and I can put bad checks. He doesn't have any 2s, so I can put bad checks with bad block mods on top of his deck. And he takes the first sound waves, takes 4 from it, and goes down to 2. And I'm pretty sure he tried to fail a block off the top, and like that's what you're supposed to do, whatever. And I have earphone jack out, so I go, okay, well, he probably would have erased there if he had it. And he's got, I think, 2 cards left in hand. He blocks his sound waves with like a +1 high, right? He blocks the first one with a +1 high binding cloth. And I'm thinking, okay, he would have erased and gotten rid of that other card somehow. He would have at least erased and then blocked on a 3, and he taps way the fuck out, to block. He taps 3 cards. He taps way out to block on a 6, checking a 3. And I just remember thinking if he had the erase, he would have erased and then done the block or something like that just to get that out. But then, he wouldn't have it for this next. He wouldn't be able to pick it up immediately. So when I played the second sound waves, it really seemed like the right play. but then he plays the erase, responds, commit the 2 cards, or draw the 2 cards, and he just didn't draw the high block. So he had a bunch of cards in hand. He did block the high right before it. He made so many great decisions, but 2 things that really made that turn work. One, I'm pretty sure he was in a position where he had to block the sound waves and tap pretty much out to do it. And 2, he did not cancel the stun 2 from the opening ricochet charge. And I don't blame him at all. It's not a turn. The board state, everything showing. The extra damage reduction elsewhere, I don't think I would have canceled it either. It didn't seem like the wrong play at the time. And I know he was looking back and going, damn, I wish I could have had that one back. Just having 1 extra foundation. Could have changed exactly how he plays around it, right? I don't know all the stuff he would have changed about that match, but, it is what it is. So, Soundwave's fucked up card. I always wanted to get a bunch of momentum against a 5-hander and just play all 3 of my Soundwaves and put 6 foundations on top of their deck and just be like, fuck you, you brick. But that's more of a style play than a winning play, so it never came up. But it would be mad funny, and Dinky's one of the few characters who can shoot up to 3 momentum to actually just stack that many foundations. So, maybe someday. Sideboard, we have 5 pieces of throw hate. I played 0 throw decks. I played an Ochako that had throws, and if you saw the stream, it was over in minutes. They could not play cards. They just checked bad on 5 diffs. It is what it is. Sided in Gunhead for Amphibious and for other stuff. Again, a lot of the times it was 4 Meteor Shower and 3 Amphibious coming out, and I would just side in non-attack cards. Home Run Comment again just for the Giro. I never tried it with Denki. It never really gelled because I clear my whole pool, and playing it on a 6 for the second turn is neat, but it never really felt necessary. I might like it if I tried one of in the main board just because it gets sound waves going, but good block mod, but it's the Giro win con. One more confused, and then ultra compressed weights. You guys know who that fucks on. Fucks on anyone who clears the card pool. It also, the other response works really cool with Danky. I wish I felt better about using it. The response commit. Maybe if maybe if I was all in on 1.3 million, it would seem more appealing, more important. But it's just there to knock that stuff away. If anyone has any questions about cards that are missing, specifically cards I haven't talked about, I talked a little bit about Specialist of Sound isn't here. I talked about Zero Gravity, why it's not here. Taiyaki Finak's not. Any foundation that destroys itself, removes itself for cost. The only one I felt good about playing was Shock Treatment. I don't think any of these other... Oh boy. I don't think any of these other cards, none of these other foundations can destroy themselves. I did use the Destroy more than the E Discard 1 momentum. But, yeah, I could not afford to lose foundations. This deck was very much tuned around turns 2 and 3 with a solid late game plan. But, just like with the whole release conversation, where if I'm actually destroying that much stuff, it's just not that good. It's like I have to, if I'm gonna get put into those situations where staying alive, destroying my stage keeps me alive, I need to find a better deck. I think Brandon Jones was kind of poking, would rather die than lose my stage. I'd rather play a different deck than have to lose my stage all the time. So Charged Up made it so I could not actually win the game a lot. I did get to tutor, it does let you play sound waves and spend the momentum to tutor the checks and stuff, but losing the foundation still just really, really hurts. Also makes me a little more discard pile reliant, and I already kind of am a lot, so that was a mixed bag too. But otherwise, I feel like the deck performed exactly how I wanted it to. It did everything it did in testing until I fought Jose, which is fine because I knew it wasn't going to do what I wanted it to do against him because I'm ripping off the buddy block thing. I'm playing like a purely aggressive character against, someone from fucking Miami. And those guys just, either you sack them or you don't. And Jose doesn't get sacked and probably does, sadly. So, last person I wanted to fucking play all tournament. Knew I was going to get paired into him. Just really wish it wasn't Top Cuts. It really was my self-sacrifice decks, but in general, but also really Jiro, just really tough for this deck. If I went to iterate on it further, I would really try to shore up that and like the Earth matchup, maybe test against Kirishima a little more. All those filthy net deckers coming out, but yeah, that's pretty much the deck, guys. That's pretty much most of the stuff I learned. I think of this deck as pretty much a pure aggro deck, not so much of a combo. I thought of Set 1 Dinky as a combo deck. And this I think of more as a aggro deck. I think his enhance is insanely sick. And I think that... yikes. I'm getting tired. I think that... navigating my opponent's board I thought was going to be harder than it was, like choosing what to commit and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is none of these attacks feel great to block, and you're really going to have a huge volume of them. I was not afraid to poke and just filter for 2 more cards, but I wasn't really trying to be greedy and throw away like foundations for attacks. And I definitely threw away 2 attacks to build more turn 2 once, saved my life, won me the game type of stuff. But the amount of dig in this small little deck is pretty impressive, especially considering we're not playing ready, get, set, go. To just have like 4 fake slots. We have 4 upstart goblins in our deck. So the one thing I will say about this, now it's at the very, very, very end. If you're still with me, thank you for hanging out with me this long. If you've been here the whole time, any amount of time, really, for being here. But one thing I will say is when it comes to choosing to do the once per game, I certainly didn't have to do it to not keep attacking. I felt good in testing when doing it. Like sometimes I just really wanted to bank 3 jolts, so I would just like on 1 or 2 foundations or whatever to like get back in a game. If I was on like 3 foundations and I checked poorly, I could still just like jolt once per game, play a 3rd jolt, and like that tap 3 going back to me like felt like an even kind of a thing. But I will say hugely important to my success was checking all the cards you can turn 1. It just says you can't attack turn 1, so I don't have the actions in the deck. But if you're playing Denki, you're playing Sound Waves, and you have, you've built all your foundations, they're all guaranteed. You're not going to actually get to ready to get set go to build 2 anyway. You can just build them now. Try to try to play a card that you're going to fail. Try to dump more cards into your discard pile. Not only to give you that more information, but because you might just mill something that you really want to be there anyway. You want to thin that deck out so you know what you can draw, so you can get closer to the time when latent skill can just randomly add the game winner to your hand. It's really kind of hard to explain. It probably doesn't really add up mathematically most of the time, at least to the degree that I'm thinking of, but all the time I would build stuff and I'd have like 4 or 5 in the card pool and I'd be like, on a 6 or a 7, just going first because there's no real risks to it. If it's a sports festival stadium, I don't want it in my hand anyway. If it's an arrogant disposition, I don't really want it in my stage, sad to say. I really want to be able to tutor that for later. You can also play the character on a form, right? It just doesn't do anything. You can just fail it going first. It not only gives you an extra review potentially, but it gets another card into your discard pile. And this deck is all about the discard pile. This deck is all about just, having it set up and ready to go early on. So again, it doesn't have to be a turn 2 deck, and I don't like the turn 2 meta that we're in. That's like a whole nother video. I've been at this for 3 hours, And it's getting a little late here, so I'm going to wrap this up. But, you know, this deck ended up turn 2ing people so often, almost, and because of its, its lack of like upfront defense, almost none of my games really went past turn 3, and I'd say less than half went to game 3, or turn 3. Sorry, turn 3. Less than half went to turn 3, and pretty much none went past that, if any. I can't actually think of any off the top of my head that went past turn 3. If I did, it was almost for sure a game that Kirishima 2 won. So that's my list. That's my thoughts. Those are things I learned. So just to recap, guys, dump cards into your discard pile as much as possible. Don't ever hard cast Sports Festival Stadium. Always tutor it up. Don't be afraid to pivot if you're checking poorly. Go for the poke and then build after. Just don't be married to turn 2. And make sure that the cards you are committing are ones you can ready. Make sure that the cards you're committing allow you to ready the most amount of foundations possible, because the name of the game is not dealing with progressive difficulty while readying foundations. And on top of that, just look at the top card of your deck is so important to this. It just makes it so easy. If you're not maxed out on Destined for mainstream, your deck better be really good defensively. That's all I gotta say, because you can really clear the way. You can really make some really cool decisions, and with the amount of card draw that I really do have going, even just seeing a 3 on top, so you can play a Sound Waves as a poke to draw and replace, and they have to, commit 1, whatever. So just super above its weight, in my opinion. It seems like an innocuous effect, and when it whiffs, it's not like that big a deal. But for this deck, checking 5s is that big of a deal. Checking 6s is that big of a deal in this deck. I'm starting to, I'm trying to imagine a deck where you have Sound Waves and you're not playing 6s, and it just seems foolish to not have at least one, right? So I really like having the buddy block, and I like not having to really, it frees up a slot on the side, which is like a fake answer, but, it works. Anyhow, guys, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. I'm fading a bit fast. I'm sorry if my words are jumbling together on you. It's still tired from the travel. I didn't even talk about my flight back. I got kind of into all the judging fiascos and all the bad feelings about people saying, nothing until 11 o'clock, and then saying be back at 8:30, and then not letting us in at 8:30, and then not starting the top cuts until an hour and a half later and stuff like that. So on my flight back, I was stuck in a middle seat between 2 strangers at first, and the stewardess was like, oh, we got open seats, and she pointed me out and moved me to an aisle seat with no one in the middle. It was like, I think the guy actually bought both seats, but there's a guy in the window seat, open seat, than me, and it was like life-saving. Kevin Broberg saved my life. I asked for YouTube recommendations to listen to on the flight back home, and he gave me the ContraPoints, and I was like, fuck yeah, those are easy. You can download any subject for ContraPoints, and the fucking video kills it. You can just listen to it, and it's fine, like a podcast. And then I get actually on the flight listening to it, and I'm so happy that I got this extra seat. I even dodged the double booking fiasco. There's like a double booking like directly across the aisle, and I'm like, fuck, they're gonna make me move back and give them these seats, and they're close together and blah blah blah. But they didn't do that. I felt like I dodged a bullet. But then once we actually get going, I'm like in this weird kind of tired state, and I keep like nodding my head forward, and I feel bad because I'm probably like bumping the dude in front of me. I'm like rolling back and forward, and my nose starts to get like a little runny on the plane, and I don't know if that happens to other people when they get tired. You just get like a little. So I'm asking for tissues. I'm probably bothering the people around me a lot just because I'm struggling to stay upright, but I don't fit anywhere where I can actually fall asleep. So I'm popping my head up a lot, and it was really bad. And then I started to get cramps in my lower back and my legs as the flight was going on, so I'm wiggling, I'm struggling, it was probably pretty rough. I didn't feel like a great guest for the people around me. I hope that they weren't too bothered, but I was fidgeting like a kid in a car seat. You know, I was ready to get out of there. And when they hit the you know, we're hitting the descent, you know, put your seatbelts on, and the plane starts to dip and weave, I'm just kind of losing it. You know, I'm just kind of like not feeling good, and the cramps are getting to me. Like, I was just about to stand up and go to the bathroom, just to stand up and stretch, just to like try and work out these cramps or whatever they are in my back, these pains in my lower back to get there, you know. And they are basically like, we're done with that. No more getting up for the flight. So it was pretty fucking bad. And I don't remember being this jet lag going to Atlanta for UFS Nationals, I think 2016. But ever since I got back, man, I've been awake, asleep, awake, asleep, awake, asleep. So, you know, it's something I'll have to get used to when traveling. My hours are like, usually I'm a night owl flipped around. I didn't have any troubles at the actual event and doing stuff, but as soon as I got back, it's just been like, I don't know where I'm at half the time. Like, I don't know what time it is. It's 8 o'clock here now, so it doesn't feel like it. But that's enough from me for tonight. I will be back tomorrow with Orange Card, Blue Card for you guys at 6 p.m. I'm still working on nailing down a guest for this week. It's, you know, everyone's just been busy. Everyone's been flying back. Everyone's making content. Everyone's doing everything. So this is probably a lot of the stuff I was going to cover in Orange Card, but I wanted to do this live stream and upload it to YouTube and stuff just so I can kind of get like my perspective. I don't like to talk drama, controversy, and stuff on Orange Card. One, because I don't think stuff has been too bad. Two, because it hasn't affected me personally yet, which is a big part of the bias. And three, because when I'm talking with other people and like I'm you know, I don't want to bring them down. I don't want to make I don't want to like really conversate about it, right? I just want to tell you guys how I'm feeling about it, how it's affected me, and where I'd like to see things go. You know, I just wanted to get it like off my chest, get it out there. People are curious, people are wondering, so you know, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Hopefully no one's like really upset. Hopefully no one misunderstood that I was trying to point anyone out. Obviously I didn't use like names or try to give too many details about people, but it's a rough world out there, and you know, just trying to be good to each other at the end of the day can you know, can not seem like a priority. So I really hope things improve. I really hope that when they, you know, when a spirit talks about them implementing better guidelines and that being a priority, I hope that's true. I hope we get to see, and by see I really mean read messages. I hope we get to hear the communication from Jaskol on that. But I will probably see you guys all tomorrow on Twitch. I'm going to try and do a little bit more live stream content. I'm still not like super great at it, but there's only one way to practice, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. So check out the recording on YouTube if you know you're here and you missed some stuff from earlier. Go check out the YouTube for, you know, the rest of the deck list profile, the link to the deck, all that good stuff. That's it for me tonight. I'm going to catch you all tomorrow with Orange Card, Blue Card. 6 p.m. Thursdays. It's on the screen. I'm out. Peace.